And first order of business would be to call the roll. So Colleen, if you do that for us, please.
Sure. Commissioner Castillo?
Present.
Commissioner Gianni is absent and excused. Commissioner Gloaz?
Present.
Commissioner Marks?
Present.
Commissioner Morrison?
Present.
Commissioner Muir?
Present.
Commissioner Schultz?
Present.
Chairman Stratman?
Here. Okay, next order of business will be the approval of minutes from the PZC meeting of May 15th. So I'd like everyone to, if they have any comments or questions to what was submitted to us, please let me know now. Hearing none, I would then entertain a motion to approve the May 15th, 2024 PZC minutes as presented.
So moved.
Thanks, Hildy.
Second.
Thanks, Jake. Call the roll, please, Colleen.
Commissioner Castillo?
I pass.
Commissioner Gloaz?
Aye.
Commissioner Marks?
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison?
Aye.
Commissioner Muir?
Aye.
Commissioner Schultz?
Aye.
Chairman Stratman?
Aye. So let the record reflect that the minutes have been presented or accepted as presented. The next time will be a public meeting. There are no items in consideration tonight. So move to the next item on our published agenda, which would be the public hearing. So I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing for the following applications. Application PZC 2024-04 for text amendment and special use permit at 80 East Main Street and 116 Lions Drive. Application PZC 2024-05 for a special use permit at 290 Telser Road. And lastly, for application PZC 2024-08 for a planned unit development, PUD, at 670 South Old Rand Road.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Jake. Call the roll, please, Colleen.
Commissioner Castillo?
Aye.
Commissioner Gloaz?
Aye.
Commissioner Marks?
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison?
Aye.
Commissioner Muir?
Aye.
Commissioner Schultz?
Aye.
Chairman Stratman?
Aye. So the next thing will be on all of the items on the public hearing tonight. Anyone wishing to speak or comment on any of these public hearings will now be sworn in. Please raise your right hand while I read a statement to swear you in. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. When you come up to the podium, please sign in at the sheet on the podium, and at the beginning of your statement, please state your name, spelling it if necessary, and state your address for the record. All comments will be addressed to the PCC chair. Any members of the public wishing to comment will be invited one by one to the podium to provide their comment. The chairperson may limit repetitious or inappropriate comments and impose reasonable time limits in accordance with any rules of the PCC. The applicant will be given the opportunity to present their application. After the applicant's presentation, the PCC members will be able to ask questions one by one of the applicants, and discussion can occur. After the PCC questions have been addressed, public testimony will be received, and the PCC commissioner comments or additional questions can ensue. After all persons are given the opportunity to speak, the hearing will be closed or continued, and the PCC will move into deliberation. The applicant may be given the opportunity to respond to questions posed by either members of the PCC or village staff during deliberation. However, no more formal testimony will be taken after the hearing is closed unless the chair decides otherwise. Once all the deliberation has ended, the PCC will vote on a recommendation to the village board on the matter. So, first item is going to be application PZC 2024-04 for the text amendment special use permit at 80 East Main Street and 116 Lions Drive. This application to establish a new Montessori school at that property location was withdrawn by the applicant, and the PZC is being requested to close out the application. Staff, do you have any comments on this closure.
No further comment. The only thing I would say is the reason they withdrew the application was because they couldn't come to an agreement with the owner on the terms of the sale of the property.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this item and close out application PZC 2024-04.
So moved.
Thanks, Sylvie.
Second.
Thanks, Jake. Call the roll, please, Colleen.
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Gloaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Marks,
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Muir, Commissioner Schultz,
Aye.
Chairman Stratman.
Aye. So let the record reflect that this matter is closed and no further action will be required on this application. Moving on to the next item on the agenda will be application PZC 2024-05 for a special use permit at 290 Tulsa Road. This is an application for a special use permit to allow for the establishment of a physical fitness facility at the property located at 290 Tulsa Road within the I Industrial District. Staff, can you confirm that proper notice was provided on this item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And then can you present the item to us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. This evening, we do have Mr. Nick Nastros, who is the applicant. If you'd like to come to the podium, he'd like to make a brief presentation and be available to answer any questions of the commission.
Good evening, Nick.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Good evening. As mentioned, my name is Nick Nastros. I am applying for the special permit over at the 290 Telser property for the use of a fitness center or more just a private gym. I'd like to thank Zurich for the process so far. He's been a great help, and I've been in contact with him probably the past year or so about the process, and he's been great so far. And to Dean, if she's listening in. A little bit about me. I'm a North Barrington resident. I think you guys wanted my address and spelling of my last name.
Yes, please.
Last name is spelled N like Nancy, A-S-T-R-U-Z. First name Nicholas. And then my address is 165 Clover Hill Lane, Barrington, 60010.
Okay, thank you.
As mentioned, I'm a local resident. I'm also a alumni of LZHS. I just got done with college here August of 23. I did a bachelor's in accounting, and then I did an MBA, and then now I'm back in the area. I've been involved in the Chamber of Commerce, Rotary Club, and the Lions Club here and there since I've opened Lake County Barbell in, I believe, July of 2022. So we had a successful 2 years there, and, it's time for us to move. I think, a couple of reasons for that. I mean, retail space, as you guys know, is a pretty high price, and industrial, because, we're not off of a busy road. We're off of Route 12 right now, and people pay a high premium for that, and, I don't really need that. I don't need to be off of a busy road to be successful. The industrial park is much more appealing for that reason. Now, the facilities for retail space are also not exactly fit for our use, whereas the industrial space is perfect. Talking about mostly concrete brick walls, concrete flooring. There's no carpet for the most part throughout the facility. It's going to be able to take the small wear and tear that comes with, heavy gym equipment being moved in and out, being used, and so forth. The 290 Tulsa location is perfect for our use. I've been looking, I'm pretty familiar with the commercial real estate market in the Lake Zurich area, at least for the past 2 years. I've looked at just about every property in the area, and it is hands down the best property I've seen for our use. A couple reasons for that. It's a pretty big building, especially compared to the facility we're in now. Lots of parking in the back, and we're also occupying the entire building, so there's no neighbors, no other businesses to interfere with or bother with. As I'm sure you guys know, a gym can be noisy, right? There's music and weights dropping. We haven't had a problem with that, but I think no neighbors is appealing for that reason. I also have the industrial park, or the industrial complex association, I believe it's called. I have their approval. I've talked with the property owner about that, and so I have an approval there. Basically went through a similar process that I'm going through now kind of spelled out to them what the use would be and got their approval prior to signing a lease. Our lease is up July 7 at the 890 Rand property, and we plan to move as soon as we get approval. My cover letter sums up the business model pretty well. I'll summarize that quickly here. You know, I'm pleased to say that, you know, it's been a month since I submitted that cover letter, and as you guys know, things change with business, and I can say that we're sticking pretty much exactly to what was put in the cover letter. I was able to find employees, so we're going to be able to have the facility staffed and monitored 24 hours if needed. And, you know, like I said, things change, but we're pretty much going to stick exactly to the script. So our business plan, you know, just at the last location, you know, we're a private gym environment, you know, almost like a home gym, think of it, you know. In my opinion, to be, you know, successful as a small business, you have to be different. And, you know, I'm saying this because we're not a commercial gym. We're not LA Fitness. We're not Lifetime Fitness. You know, that's not what's happening here. We're not slapping an LA Fitness in the middle of the industrial park. We're a small private gym, you know, meant for the advanced lifters. I'm not expecting growth moving to this next spot. The reason for that, there will be a higher price. I don't really expect, you know, the floodgates to open for that reason. I think that, you know, we're just going to be able to pay the bills by putting forward a higher price. Now, there really will be no more than 7 to 8 people in the facility at a time. And I have data based off of that, based off the last location. I think we can expect that, you know, like for example, right now I checked the cameras just before I walked in here. There's one person inside the facility. So as I mentioned, private gym, not really, you know, not a lot of people coming in. Also, the 24 hours or extended time period of opening really has the amount of people spread out throughout the day. You know, like at your average commercial gym, you know, if you're in there at 9 o'clock, everyone's in there rushing to get their workout done. It's packed at 9 o'clock. But for us, you know, we're open late. So people come in late. You don't get that evening rush. So I think, you know, important point here, I made this in my cover letter. And I think this is relevant in that, you know, I don't rely on this business personally. And why that's relevant is, you know, I'm not going to act out of desperation in the operation of my business. I'm not going to, you know, need to pay the bills and, you know, do something desperate that, you know, wouldn't be appealing to you guys. So, you know, and I'm saying that because obviously the reason why I'm here is you want to ensure that I'm not slapping a, you know, LA Fitness in the middle of the industrial park with, it's got something like 14 parking spaces, right? So, you know, I think that's an important point there. If there's an issue and something you guys want me to adjust, I can do it, no problem. I don't really have any worry we're going to be successful there. Obviously, I wouldn't be here if that was the case. I think you can expect just about the same business to be copy and pasted in the industrial park. It's, you know, we're going to have more parking spaces than before. Parking's never been a problem. We had, I think we have 8 parking spaces at the current location. We're going to expand to 11 to 14 with opportunity to expand into also our neighbor who I've talked to about using his lot, who is effectively directly next door to us. So that's all I had. Any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Dick. We'll start with you, Antonio. Question for the
No,
Commissioner.
no. The only concern I had was, if anything, was a 24/7. But what I read was that it's going to be by appointment only. So, and that you'll always have somebody from staff there. So
Correct.
that you know, that kind of helped me understand it better. I
Correct.
think that the facility itself, the way you explained it, the way it's in the packet is really good. I like the fact that you got the approval from the Industrial Park Board. There was a time where a lot of these type of facilities were not wanted in the industrial park because of the safety issues that were involved. But it has expanded and it's now evolved, and so they've given the approval. The 24/7 has gone through, so as far as I'm concerned, that's all I got.
Good, thank you, Antonio.
Thank you.
Well, I think one of the reasons that this is different than some of the other petitions we've had as far as moving into the industrial park is that this is a standalone building as opposed to a condo unit in one of the other buildings. So there's no interference with the other operations in that sense.
No, right. I just remember back in the day when we had a lot of, the gyms were going into gymnastics and all that. It was more about people in the parking lot and cars coming in and out of the drives. So, but that has changed. So we're starting to see that we're evolving within the industrial park where there can be coexistence between facilities like this and some of the manufacturing locations.
Thank you, Antonio. Jake?
No, super straightforward. No questions on my part.
Okay, thank you. Ildy?
Can you just, I had the same kind of, question or concerns about the 24 hours a day. So like somebody, help me understand how at 2 o'clock in the morning that's gonna work. I mean,
Right.
are you going to have 7 days a week an employee there overnight, just in case?
Well,
Or-
there'll be shifts. There's gonna be a lot of employees, I'm thinking about 8, and I've started on that. And 8 employees, designated to, facility management. I'm gonna have, I'm sure some other employees, or however you may call them. Now, we're open, 24 hours now, and it's the same model. Now, what we realize, and it's not really like that much anymore. What we realize is no one really comes in at 2 in the morning, believe it or not. So it's somewhat unnecessary. So I've set up, effectively, it's going to be pretty easy for members to use it through Google Calendar, And if someone wants to come in late, or, we find someone that, has an odd schedule, we'll be able to map that out, right? Put it on the calendar. Obviously we're gonna have to test it out, and we've had time to test that out, but we're gonna find some sort of software that allows us to see when people are coming in. And I think I mentioned a 6 to 12 kind of operating hours for our standard business hours. And then kind of the way you can kind of expect it to work is we won't have that hard cutoff at 12. What'll happen is if someone, for some reason's in there at midnight, which it does happen, if someone's in there at midnight and they kind of, maybe they work out till 1 in the morning, workout goes a little late. I'm sure all of you know what that's like when you're working out at the gym and it closes at 9, right? And you got to kind of hurry up and get out of there. We'll kind of eliminate that. And then as soon as that person leaves, we'll close. And, I'll also implement some sort of way for people to check if it's open late online. Social media is something we use a lot of, and our website we're working on making that kind of integrated in there. So we'll advertise as 24 hours, but not exactly, right?
So in the middle of the night, nobody can just kind of walk up and hope to get in.
No.
They'd have to schedule it ahead of time, and for them to then be able to use it in the middle of the night, an employee would have to be there.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so they're not gonna have keys or keypads or anything like that where they come in on their own and do whatever they need to do.
There'll be a key fob access, and there's a lot you can do with it. You can close it at the flip of a switch. You can take access away from people. So effectively, when it's time to lock up, it'll be shut down. When you open up in the morning, you open it back up, essentially, when it's time for the building to be closed.
Okay,
I think what you're asking is, at no time would there be customers without,
an employee.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay,
It'll be difficult to staff it at late hours, but it's possible. There's 24-hour gyms out there that are, staffed 24 hours and open 24 hours. It's, I'm sure there'll be a lot of turnover with the employees that work that late. But so far, as I mentioned, I've had about a month to work on this since I submitted my cover letter, and I've found multiple people that are willing to do this.
okay, I think that's all I had, thank you.
thanks, Ildy. Mike? No questions. No questions. Sean? No questions. Scott? Okay. All right, and then what we'd like to point out for people here that are first time here maybe, is that when we review the packet presented to us by staff, prior to tonight's meeting. Staff has a way of going through the requirements for the project, and they help us understand whether or not the requirements are met by using green font in their response, if everything's okay. They'll use yellow font if there's a caution where something's a question. They'll use red font in their description if it simply doesn't comply. In your petition, the staff response is all in green font. So they agreed with what you've said this evening, that you have worked with them and everything's been ironed out and you've taken care of with the industrial council. So that's all good for you. Are there,
I'm sorry, can I ask another
Yeah,
question?
absolutely.
I apologize. I wrote it down and I left it at home. My only other question was about lighting. Once again, middle of the night, is it going to be, because maybe I missed it, but I didn't see lighting really addressed with people accessing 24 hours a day. In the middle of the night, you're going to have adequate lighting. Has that been addressed? Is that gonna, for security? Absolutely, more so than anything.
They haven't proposed anything that already isn't there on the building right now. They will probably need some security lighting by the doors itself. And typically, we see in the industrial park, wall packs are the way to go rather than freestanding lighting, so that you can focus the lighting closer to the building. So if there is lighting that's proposed, we will cover that during the building permit process.
Right, that's what I was gonna,
Mhm.
yeah.
But
during-
as of now,
okay,
nothing
during-
different has been proposed yet.
Okay, all right.
Mr.
all right, is there anyone in the audience tonight wishing to speak on this petition? All right.
He was not sworn in.
Mr. Hill, were you sworn in at the beginning? No, I wasn't. Okay, well then, let's do that real quick. Let's make you legitimate, shall we?
Thank you. I always want to be legitimate.
Do you swear testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, it will.
Right, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. I apologize for having to do a separate swear-in, but I appreciate your consideration. I'm a resident of Lake Zurich, 598 Dunhill Drive, Lake Zurich. I'm also president of the Lake Zurich Industrial Council. And I have had conversations with Nick about his project in the industrial park. And although the sports facilities are not our favorite type of use to see going into an industrial zone property, this specific situation was tolerable based on the business model that Nick had outlined to all you guys, and the fact that his clients are older, more adults. It's like, people over 18 and they're in college ages and stuff like that. So based upon some of that, we were okay with that. And like I said, after Nick explained to us his business model, we deemed it acceptable. Okay? So just wanted to let you know, to confirm that.
Thank you, Mike.
All
And
right,
a
guys.
good clarification about the age of the members. That does help, the clarification. Thank you.
Yes, okay.
Okay, anyone else from the public on this item this evening? Okay. Then, are we ready to go to deliberation, commissioners? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Nastros wanted to say something else before Mr. Hilt came to the podium. Nick, did you have something
Nick,
else
you
to
had
say?
something else?
Yeah, lighting was mentioned. We're still working on that. There may be some changes. Unlikely, no. There's actually a lot of the lighting in the facility has sensors, so they automatically pop on if someone walks by. So, and there's also there's lighting outside that's on whenever it's dark, so it's censored base. So there'll be lighting on the outside of the facility at dark times, and then on the inside of the facility, either it'll be censored where it pops on if someone walks by, or it'll just be through a flip of a switch with which employees will turn them on and off. That's
Okay.
all I had.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you for that. Okay, thank you.
Orlando, I have one more.
Yes. And
So Roche, typically in our packets, we have something from the Lake Zurich Police Department. I saw nothing in here. Is that because they had no reservations about it, or because it's just not part of the packet? Because that would address the security for my
They had no reservations about it when we talked about it at our development review team meetings. Typically, we bring our teams together when we talk about these projects that are being presented to the PZC, and if there are any reservations, they bring them up. They weren't.
And they had none.
They had none.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on application PZC 2024-05 and move to deliberation.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll, please, Colleen.
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Marks,
Aye.
Commissioner Gloaz, Commissioner Morrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Muir,
Aye.
Commissioner Schultz,
Aye.
Chairman Stratman.
Aye. Okay, Commissioners, do we have further discussion on this item? Looking up and down, seeing none? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to, on application PZC 2024-05. I'll entertain a motion to receive into the public record the staff review of compliance of this application with the zoning standards as presented by staff, to receive the testimony presented by the applicants, by members of the public, and by PCC members, and by village staff at tonight's public hearing, and to make these standards and testimony a part of the official record for the application and findings of the PCC, and to recommend that the village board approve the application for a special use permit to allow for a physical fitness facility at the property located at 290 Tulsa Road.
So moved.
Thank you, Odie.
Second.
Thanks, Jake. Call the roll, please, Colleen.
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Gloaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Marks,
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Muir,
Aye.
Commissioner Schultz,
Aye.
Chairman Stratman.
Aye. So, Nick, you have a unanimous recommendation from this commission to go forward to the village board, and it will appear before the village board at an upcoming meeting in July.
Yes, and we'll work with you on the date. I'll let you know once we've confirmed the date. I'll stay in touch with you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick.
Good luck.
Okay, we move to our next item, which is application PZC 2024-08 for planned unit development at 670 South Old Rand Road. This is an application for planned unit development, PUD, to allow for the development of a property with new residential subdivision containing a mix of single-family attached townhomes and single-family detached homes. The project will also require the rezoning of the property to the appropriate single-family and multiple-family zoning classifications. Staff, can you once again confirm proper notice was provided on this item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and then can you present the petitioners and item for us?
Thank you. This evening, to begin the presentation, we have the applicant, Mr. Lawrence Friedman. He is the attorney for the developers, and he will start off with introducing the project and then introducing the team. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you,
Friedman.
Mr. Roche. Good evening. My name is Lawrence Friedman. I'm an attorney representing the applicant. I'm with the firm of Ash, Anos, Friedman, and Logan. My address is 95 Revere Drive, Northbrook, Illinois. As the commission will recall, we were before you with this piece of property and this petitioner, but with a different petition, around 2 years ago. And at that time, we were presenting initially about 58, I think it got reduced down in the process to about 50 townhome units. Although we received a favorable recommendation from this commission, ultimately at the Board of Trustees, there were concerns, primarily with density, somewhat with some of the architectural treatment, and somewhat with the product. And after multiple appearances, the board indulged us quite a few times to try and make some changes. We really couldn't come up with a plan within the framework of that product and that number that was acceptable. The petitioner and the owner of the property have persisted over the last 2 years to try and come up with the plan you have tonight, which is a new plan. In lieu of 50 townhomes, what we are presenting tonight is our 38 mixed-use residential for sale homes and/or townhomes. We worked extensively over the last 2 years, particularly in the last 6 months with staff, to try and address whatever issues we felt were of concern to the village, both the staff and the board. in the earlier plan, and we think we've done that now. With that said, I'd like to call David Hames, who was our architect and planner, to run through the plan with you.
Thanks, Mr. Freeman.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Again, David Hames, that's Haymes. I'm an architect, and I'm the founding partner of the firm Papa George Hames Partners, located in Chicago. We're a 43-year-old firm, and our focus is almost exclusively residential of all forms. So we're very much informed about how we should approach a project such as this. We do have other team members available representing traffic engineering, civil engineering, and landscape architecture, and they'll be available for questions and/or discussion afterward. As to the overview of the project, very simply, there are two primary building types. There are 18 freestanding detached single-family homes, and there are 20 single-family attached townhomes. The site is approximately 9 acres. I think everyone's familiar with the location between Old Rand Road and Bushing Road. And as you'll see in a little bit more, a significant portion of the property is set aside as green space, both sort of surrounding the wetland area to the north and the green space that's accommodated on the interior of the plant. There are 2 enclosed parking spaces for every dwelling unit. Most of the units have 2 additional pad parking spaces, and then there are also 22 guest parking spaces on site. So we've met ordinance requirements quite easily there. In terms of our objectives here, we really wanted to create a planning and landscaping and architectural character that was a vibrant and interesting micro-community that really fit within the village of Lake Zurich. And I feel that we, in addition to a mix of highly marketable unit types, I think we've achieved that. I wanted to draw, actually, I'm going to go back just one second. The primary vehicular access is a through road that occurs connecting the 2 main thoroughfares. And then connecting to that is a small loop road that serves primarily the attached single-family townhomes. This provides for really seamless fire department access and fluidity to access the major thoroughfares. All the garage parking is discrete from the street. You don't see it from the road. The community won't be visible. The single-family homes are the detached single-family homes are 2 types. There's those that are oriented to the north, and they have really terrific benefit of having this great green space as their backyard, an extension of their backyard. The other single-family homes face bushing, which of course front to other single-family homes across the road. It's a different product type, just a different floor plan arrangements, and et cetera. And by the way, we do have little floor plans for all these units that we could share with you if you're interested and talk about them. And then the remaining units are the 5 buildings that you see are attached single-family townhome units that ring around an open space. A few things that I really wanted to call attention to. One is our treatment of the access on Old Rand Road, both on the left and the right being a portion of the aerial rendering that we have, which you'll see in a moment in full view. We do a right and left out, and a right in or a in only on the right side, and then we're intending to provide a crosswalk across Old Rand Road. That's something that I understand was requested before and hadn't been satisfied. The other thing is what we're doing is providing a pedestrian sidewalk connection that goes all the way through the site. And you can see it occurs on both sides of that internal drive. And you see that in the rendering as well. I understand there are, and recognizably so, there can be concerns about how we front to adjacent properties. Of particular note is we have significant dimension uh, 54 feet from our property line to our first building, relative to the property to the south. So there's a generous amount of space. We have a 10-foot landscape buffer, and inside of that landscape buffer, which would be slightly bermed, is a 6-foot tall wood fence. So it's very discreet and should ameliorate any negative impacts on the neighbor to the south. Then I think a really important part of the plan is this really generous open space that we have, which really gives a lot of breathing room to the site and provides obviously a terrific amenity for the residents. This open space is nearly a half an acre by itself, and as you can see, it provides the front door access to the single-family townhome units. The landscape plan, I'm not going to get into detail here, but we do have Steve Gregory, our landscape architect, who can dive into the details of plantings and both within the more developed portion of the site as well as the wetland area and the area that surrounds it. Architectural character, these are the single-family homes that are to the north. We are contemplating 2 basic house types, which you can see here. On the left is a house plan that is evolved around a at-grade access. And part of what we're doing is responding to the natural topography of the site, you know, as we think about these things. And then the other plan, the one on the right, is one with an elevated entrance, a little bit more formal, more traditional sort of style. There are completely different floor plans on the interior, so it'll provide a good deal of variety for buyers, for residents. And then in addition to that, we're contemplating multiple configurations of exterior facade treatments. You can see the different base treatment. On the left, you see that there's brick. And then for the body of the house, it's largely fiber cement siding, and we'll be using multiple colors in a very restrained, you know, not artificial way, something that's very natural and comfortable. The houses along Bushing Road are of a different style. They're slightly narrower. There's a generous amount of space in between them, 11 feet, as you can see by dimension. And, you know, doing the same sort of thing here with bringing a lot of detail and variety into the plan through the use of how you articulate the base in the middle and the top, the different roof line configurations, a lot of detail to make it interesting and compelling and very marketable, of course. Lastly, I've just shared the straight-on elevation of one of the townhome buildings. Again, quite a bit of detail and character that's incorporated into them. There are 2 unit types out of the 20 townhomes. And there may be internal variations. So the renderings, just to share with you a little bit more detail, this is the aerial view looking northwest. And you get a good sense of how all of those components come together. This is our west entry at Old Rand Road. From a pedestrian perspective, you can see how the sidewalks relate to the street, and you enter the site in a small monument sign at the roadway to signify the entrance to the project. This is the central green space, again from a pedestrian level. And I didn't, there would be something like a gazebo, you know, some architectural character treatment that would be contributing to this space. And off to the right, you don't see it as where the mailboxes would be and that sort of thing, which we've provided easy access to. And then I didn't really explain it, but also in the plan, there's access towards that green wetland area. And then the view from Bushing Road, seeing the two different single-family home types that you can see from the road and how they're articulated. Again, we do have all the floor plans available if you wanted to dive into any nuts and bolts details. Or we do have the civil plans attached to this presentation, the primary civil plans, if you wanted to discuss any of those. And of course, we have the landscape plan, so if we can pull those up easily, I'm not gonna do it right now, but if you have questions about them, we can certainly do it. And again, we have traffic engineering, civil engineering, and landscape represented here
Yeah,
as well.
I'll give the cards of the people we have here to your secretary, so at least.
Good, thank you. Good, thank you. So, Ms. Roche, I have a question of staff. With this being submitted to us, presented as a PUD,
Yes.
we oftentimes see where there are variances that are being granted as part or requested under the PUD. I didn't see one for the side yard setback.
Actually, there is the table in your staff report
Oh, good.
on page,
And I apologize for not seeing that.
page 16. We went through each of the standards,
Ah.
what the
it is.
requirements were, and then what they were requesting for the north lots along the north private street, as well as what they were requesting for the Bushing Road facing homes. And I would also like the applicants to clarify the parking for the Bushing Road properties. We'd called it out as a modification, but I had seen some plans show a third parking space next to the two-car garage. Could you talk a little bit about that and how it's going to be proposed?
Yeah, each of those houses has a two-car garage, which is detached, unlike the houses at the north, which are attached. And they do have, there's a two-car garage and then extra pad space adjacent to it.
All right.
Which for flexible use, it could be car parking, or if somebody wanted to use it for a garden area, I suppose there might be an opportunity for something like that. But
All right, so what you're saying is they won't be a standard feature on every lot?
no, it would be.
Oh, it
Well,
would be,
actually,
okay, just
I-
wanted to make sure.
If I can can I go back to the plan?
Go back
Yes,
to the,
yeah,
why don't you show them?
there you go.
That'd be helpful.
Oops. Gonna have to go all the way back, sorry.
That's okay. Or if you remember the slide number, you can type it and hit enter.
All of the single-family homes on Bushing.
David, can you use the remote mic, the wireless
Oh, you
mic?
know what? Why don't you-
Actually, there's a mic on the podium to the left of the computer. Yeah. Make sure you turn it on though. The switch is on the stem, yeah.
Sorry. Does that work?
Yes, that's perfect.
So these are the single-family homes on Bushing, and these are the detached garages I described, and each one has a pad parking space adjacent to it, and actually some green space that separates it from the garage itself. So it's a pretty generous amount of space.
So then, Mr. Chairman, to clarify, we will remove the modification that we believe they would need, because now they would comply with the parking requirement for that row of single-family homes as well.
Okay, good, thank you. But then in terms of the fact that they are requesting under the PUD, the significant variance to the side lots.
Yes.
The distances between, because of the amount of open space and the other green space being provided, does our free area then calculate in terms of the PUD itself?
Yes.
Do we balance back out in terms of?
Actually, they do pretty well on their density. 5.73 units per acre is what their density is being proposed. This is comparable to a number of townhouse developments in town. I can go through some of them if you'd like. For instance, Meadowwood is 6.6 units per acre. Flint Crossing is 4.8 units per acre. Lake Breeze Townhomes is 6.2 units per acre. And then as you get closer to the Main Street downtown area, the density does increase. Somerset is 19 units per acre. Canterbury Townhomes, which is along Route 22, is 11.5 units per acre. Sanctuary, which was recently built, is 10.2 units per acre. And Sandy Point Townhomes is 7.6 units. So at 5.7, they are lower than a number of the density numbers that I just read out to you, primarily because of the manner in which they've designed and added the single-family detached homes. albeit these homes are closer to each other, 11 feet for the ones that face Bushing Road and 15 feet for the ones that are along the northerly end of the development. For a standard subdivision, that would be 20 feet as a standard, and they've asked for 15 along the northern and 14 along the easterly.
Okay, good. Thank you for the clarification. Okay. I guess one question from the commission, I know that because we've all seen the green space that exists there now, and that's what a lot of people have been concerned about. What is going to be the effort made in terms of what's going to happen with this? Has the survey been conducted? Are there trees that are heritage trees that are going to be saved, will be saved as part of the development?
I'd like to introduce Steve Gregory of Erickson Engineering, our landscape architect.
Thank you.
Yes, we've done we've had an arborist come out and do our preliminary survey of the existing trees, and we've understood that you're going to want a little more detail on where those actually fall if this is to go forward. We didn't want to spend the time to go out, identify those, if in fact you were not looking at this favorably. So we can get you that additional detail to show you where those fall on the property. By and large, the quality of the vegetation that's there is not what would be considered high quality, but the whole area north of the wetland, anything north of the wetland will stay as is. The wetland itself will stay as it is, and that is a large chunk of the existing trees. So even some of those trees that are in the wetter areas will still remain. We have no desire to go in and take those out. So a good chunk of that vegetation that's there to the north, all of that will stay. And we will, as we move forward, continue to work with staff and get the better definition of that, of where those heritage trees fall.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gregory. And the
Mr.
reason
Chairman,
I-
if you would look, I'm sorry, I
ahead.
didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, the reason I raised the question is because outside our village limits, our neighbor to the south, Kildare, just developed a property at Cuba and 12, and they don't have the same tree preservation ordinance that we have. And so when they went to put in those homes on the property, they clear cut it. They did the Mr. T thing. Everything that was standing was gone. They brought Homer tree in and everything was cut down. And I saw trees 3 foot in diameter that were being loaded up onto their trucks to take away. It was, we don't want to see that happen.
And we're gonna do everything we can to keep any of the significant vegetation that we can.
Good, thank you.
I have a question real quick. So, didn't this come before courtesy review?
Yes, but not for this particular proposal, for the previous proposal. Being the fact that they had gone through 3 courtesy reviews already, the village board had directed staff to say, just go before the Planning and Zoning Commission and explain your project out.
But if I'm not mistaken, even then, the issue of landscaping and trees was addressed at that time.
Yes, yes,
And at that time, the temperature of this project going forward was favorable.
yes.
So therefore, they should have done their due diligence in saying what trees should and should not be marked because they already had the temperature gauge of being high,
Yes.
in my opinion.
So what they've done is, in the report that you have with you, is they have listed out every tree and classified every tree. And for example, I don't have it in front of me, but there are 7 heritage trees, I believe, on the property, and a few landmark trees, but a majority of the trees are your standard trees that kind of grew due to lack of tilling of the soil or any other use of the land. And so we've specified that we would like to see where the heritage trees are particularly, and we believe that a number of them will be in the open space that's going to be preserved over there. But if there are some in the area where the green space is, that those heritage trees also be preserved. And as part of our tree preservation ordinance, we also have a table that calculates replacement value. So we're going to be asking the landscape consultant to actually calculate the replacement value and show how the proposal for landscaping, which includes a large number of new trees being planted on the property, to show how these new trees will meet that replacement value.
And of course, what we do know is that when you have replacement trees, they're never the same size.
No, they're not.
I got
That's
it.
why
So
we have
that's-
multiple
okay,
trees
fine.
replacing one tree, and that's why we have a formula for replacement value. Thank you.
I have a question as well. You mentioned that there was wetland to the north that's not being touched. On the, I think it's landscape plan L100, there is a detention pond, and that's just to the south, is that correct? And that is going to be part of the proposed plan?
Yes, that's correct. We had to keep that detention area, has to remain outside of the floodplain and the wetland, and you can't mix the two. So we're taking that area, and that will actually be planted in a low-profile prairie around the outside with wet mesic plantings in the basin to give it a more naturalized look and be similar to, kind of reflect what's there or would be there if it were an actual wetland. But you can't really mix the two. But that, yes, that whole area will remain green.
And this area here, I'm sorry.
The bluish area on that plan,
Is a berm that separates the wetland from the detention pond?
there
is
is,
that
yeah,
correct?
there's a grade change so that the water doesn't flow freely between the two.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we've been asked to look at the stream that is associated there, the creek that's associated with that wetland. There's some slope issues with deterioration and sedimentation that we've agreed that we will look at and restabilize that as needed in some of those areas without disturbing the wetland.
If I may add to what they said, this was something that we've been looking at this particular property for quite a while. To give you a comparison, the Cummings property on the southwest corner of Quentin and 22, a couple of years ago, had its stream banks stabilized. And so if you want to see what the full growth of native vegetation that was planted is today, that would serve as a very good example. I would also add that because of the erosion that's taken place along the existing stream banks, that will require the removal of some of the invasive species of trees that don't really belong over there to open up that area to allow the natives that are going to be planted in there to flourish. So you will see somewhat of a lightening of the number of trees over there, but all for the benefit of the native plants to actually flourish along the stream bank, take hold so that once they stabilize it, the chance of erosion is greatly reduced.
And in that process, you often go in and you'll leave the existing vegetation and simply cut it off, but leave the root structure there so that it holds that soil until the new, more desirable plants fill in and create a better environment. So that's just kind of how that process will look.
If I may ask, for the purposes of the properties to the south, the treatment along the fence line that Mr. Hames had talked about, what types of trees, a combination of evergreen deciduous, could you talk a little
Correct,
bit
yeah,
about that?
it's going to be a mix of evergreens. And as we went through this process the last time, we haven't changed the approach to that south property line. So you're going to have a 6-foot-high fence and then lined with evergreens, deciduous trees, and native shrubs to help soften that fence and provide a complete screen along that south property line, our south property line, their north.
Okay, I think the next thing we might want to hear is on, I know that we've reduced the number of units, Mr. Freeman, from what we'd seen prior. So with the reduction in units, we'd like to hear something about the traffic studies that have been conducted based on the new number of homes that are being proposed.
Could you also state your name?
Yep, my name is Mike Renner with Erickson Engineering. I do want to point out that while I am a professional engineer, I am not the author of the traffic report. This was actually authored by Steve Corcoran from our office. So I'm happy to just give you some, you had asked a question about what is the impact that we discovered from the development. So I'll just run through a few of things that are in Steve's report here. As we said, there are 38 residential units, and that will generate 26 to 31 peak hour trips during the morning and evening commuter periods. That's a pretty low number. We can also get into, later I'll explain what that means at each intersection and how that affects each intersection. All intersections within the study area are of acceptable levels. There is a slight increase in delays at some of those intersections, but again, I'll get into the details of what that delay, how to quantify that delay. As David mentioned earlier, there is a inbound and an outbound at each intersection with Bushing and with Old Rand Road, with the new road that's coming in. There's no turn lanes no turn lane modifications anticipated on either one of the main north-south thoroughfares. There's no turn lanes that are needed within the development itself. While at the same time, those intersections that I referred to, those will be stop sign controlled. There's no traffic signals that are warranted for any of this work. Dave Hames had already mentioned the pedestrian crosswalk. We obviously would recommend that there be signage along Old Rand Road for when you approach that there's as you're approaching that intersection, that there is a crosswalk there. We talked about the number of parking spaces, so I don't think I need to get into that any further. So let's talk just very briefly about the intersection analysis that was conducted. So what we determined is that this would be at the corner of Old Rand Road, Bushing, and Grand Avenue. We looked at morning peak and afternoon peak at those 3 points. And the classification that we provide is an A through F. A being the best, F being the worst, meaning that if it's an A intersection, the amount of delay is minimal. When you pull up to the intersection, how many seconds are you having to wait until you're able to move through the intersection? And what we found is that we compared the existing, which would be the 2024 data, to the year 2030. We used 2030 because we had CMAP data that we utilized to determine what would be if this development were not built, what would be the impact in this area from just general traffic going from 2024 to 2030. And then on top of that, we overlaid the traffic that would be generated by this development. So when all that data is input, we have the difference in a morning peak period. We're still at a B level, and it's only a difference of 0.2 seconds. So these are really minor, plus 0.4 seconds, zero change, a zero change. Those are all either A or B levels. Those are in the morning peak periods. In the afternoon peak periods, there is a B level that went from 13.9 to 14.1. So again, a very small change to that movement. There's 4 here, as I mentioned. One is a B. The other 2 are A's. Probably the worst one, and this is a C level, 17.2 seconds goes to 17.8 seconds. So in our opinion, the impact of this development is really minimal, the amount of delay that's caused because of this development. I don't know if you had any questions about number of parking spaces.
Well, that one issue was already addressed with the.
Right.
The issue too I have, Mr. Renner, is going to be, do you have anything in the packet that I didn't see from a line of sight perspective, if you will, of where your intersection is going to be on Old Rand coming out of the development?
Sure.
Because Old Rand, along that section, has somewhat of a decline as it goes past, what's the other subdivision across?
Heatherly.
Pardon?
Heatherly.
Heatherly. So I'm just wondering, with the number of cars that you have now exiting this new planned development coming out onto Old Rand Road, what that line of sight is. What is their view going to be looking up and down Rand?
Sure.
Old Rand before they pull out?
So I can tell you that this report does not comment on the sight distance of those intersections. I don't know if if Melanie, if that was part of your analysis, was the site distance. That is something that we can certainly dig into, but that was not mentioned in the traffic and parking analysis for this. This report just talks about
Volume.
traffic generated, volumes, the impact to the intersections, the timing, as well as the on-site parking.
All right. Just as a concern, I would like to see that item addressed, particularly depending on what happens this evening, before we move forward to the board, from a safety standpoint, and I would think our police might want to have a comment on that as well, for coming out of the development onto Old Rand Road. Just in terms of that, what's the distance of line of sight because of the grade drop
Sure,
as it approaches?
understand, we can work on that.
Good, thank you.
Orlando, as long as you're on that, I'd like to segue on that. I'd like to know the same thing with the pedestrian crosswalk, because as they come over, you're not gonna see it. And so for me, it would be one of those flashing lights that says there's a pedestrian there, as opposed to something that's static. So it's something that has to be visible because of the problem. I mean, if we couldn't even get a sidewalk the last time this thing came before us, because of that, then pedestrians crossing, it means nothing. I see those pedestrian crosswalks over at Walmart and people ignore them. Same thing at Costco. So this is even gonna be worse because those cars are coming down in the morning and coming down quick in the afternoon.
We do have a standard for pedestrian crosswalk signals. These are flashing lights that go off when there is a pedestrian in the walk, and that we have found to be quite effective, particularly along Old Rand Road, where we installed 2 of them at the request of our Public Works Department to Lifetime.
This would be ideal.
This
Yeah.
would be the
This would be
type
ideal,
of
because-
crosswalk that we would use that, and
Yeah.
I think y'all had agreed to do that.
Right. Thank you.
And the speed limit's not gonna change.
No, they're not
On any of
changing
the
the speed.
roads.
The speed limit
Not that
is minimal.
People necessarily follow the speed
yes,
limit,
it's
but
35, yeah.
one can always hope, right?
Yeah, the posted speed limit there is 30
Yeah.
right now.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Renner. Commissioners, you have any question, Mr. Renner, before we see who they have next on presentation for us? Okay, Antonio.
Sorry, I have a list,
Okay.
but it's not for him.
Oh,
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I have questions about the
Mr. Hames,
Mr. Yes,
You're up.
please. So the first question I have is, when you build these buildings, is it going to be that you build the specific model in the row, or as people buy them, they select the model they want?
That's really not determined, but I would suspect it would be the latter.
So, because where I'm heading is for monotony, so that there's not all together, they're not all the same color, it's something different. So you'll be able to control that based on somebody selecting and you saying, well, we can't have these 2 here, or we have to have a different color, something like that.
We've had a fair amount of experience with this exact issue because it's a great concern for us as architects. We don't want that, exactly what you're speculating could happen. We don't want that to happen. So,
Right.
I think we can convince our client that we need to have control over it and dictate it, and that's what they have to select from.
We've made a big issue about this in other projects in Lake Zurich to make sure that that doesn't happen.
I don't think it would be a challenge for us to make sure we do that.
We also have a monotony code, which we would.
Yes.
Yes, we do. As part of our exterior appearance codes, where we ask the developers to kind of give us a general idea of how models will be spaced, so that no 2 models or the same model with 2 different options could be placed next to each other. Because we also found that models are based on their floor plans, whereas you have elevation options that can change, giving a different appearance. So that slight blend or tweak rather would also create a break in the monotony along the street. So we'll be working with them very closely. We've worked with other developers, and other developers are always amenable to that because from their standpoint, it helps with marketing a home where you know that you're going to get a little more variety along the street, which is more pleasing for residents to live along. So.
Got it. And I do know that we do have a monotony code. Thank you so much. But for me, it's about people who come in who don't know that we have one of those.
Yeah.
And they try to buy whatever they want. I mean, it's kind of like when I umpire and people don't even know the rules and they're managers.
But we know, and we don't want it.
I understand. So, but that's why I bring it up, so that anybody who's watching this can actually hear it. You brought up a fence. I believe in the packet it says that it's going to be a solid fence. Can you describe that fence for me?
Just a conventional board fence,
A picket fence?
board.
Board fence.
They're talking about the fence at the south.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Would this be like what is along Old Rand Road further to the south? On everybody's backyard?
I think it would be close to that, yeah. And we actually have, there is a drawing of it in the package. I'm not sure if it's, there's a detail for it. I'm not sure if it's actually in the slides. But
Yeah, I mean, it's more because I wanted to see where was that and what it kind of looked like. Again, the project that Chairman Stratman referred to, that's Kildeer's project. And based on the homes that are there, the fence that went up there is pitiful,
Okay.
given the fact of what they're building there and what they're charging for those homes. It is very pitiful, and that's right on Rand Road. And it's like, okay, so we want to have something in the village that, that talks about who we are as a village. So that's the reason I was bringing it up.
So let me ask, would that infer more detail, less detail? What do you, I mean, I think this is something that could be very easily tailored. you know,
Yeah,
to
and I think, Sarosh, if you can handle that
Sure.
part of it.
We
Go
could
ahead.
work with them. We've actually had instances where we have certain composite materials that actually don't fade as much as a standard wood board fence, one that may need less maintenance or replacement over a much longer period of time, rather than a board fence which may need a little more frequent replacement. So I think, is that what you're looking at?
That's where I'm heading. I mean, you get on 53 and you look what IDOT did with that big fence, and it's pathetic. I mean, it's just, seriously, it's like, you're just,
We want this fence there for, obviously, for screening and security.
Right,
But
Lawrence.
we'll work with staff on whatever nuances they want to, from an aesthetic standpoint, we're open to.
I'm just throwing it out there. Thank you. I
That's
appreciate it,
fine.
Lawrence. Okay. The other thing I have, which I think is going to be more Sarosha's and maybe the petitioners, is this thing about, in the packet, it talks about that your streets are private streets. So if they're private streets, who does the snow plow, who does the snow removal, and who does that all? Because you're going to have a homeowners association, right?
Correct.
So then they'll take care of all of that. That will not be part of the village's
Yes.
responsibility.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Does not add a burden to the village's Public Works Department.
And the village has enforcement methods.
Yes, we do. We actually, as part of one of the conditions, we talk about the fact that a backup special service area will be put in place in the event their HOA defaults on their responsibilities. We would then effect a tax levy on the residents to pay for any services that the village then takes over for detention, for landscape maintenance, for the green space maintenance, and for road and snow removal.
And that will be communicated to every homeowner as they buy into the facility?
Yes, it's through an
And they
ordinance
would-
that's recorded. Mhm.
The way, yes, it would have to be, because the way it's done, there would be a declaration recorded establishing it, and they'd all get it in their packet, and there'd be an explanation of it. It'll show up on their title when they close, so they will clearly be informed.
I mean, I know that we know a lot of people that all of a sudden, it just comes out of left field. Oh, I didn't know this.
Well, but
here
they
it is.
did.
No, right, no, exactly. That's my point, is the point is that it's there and we can
No,
go to
it
that
will
point.
be. And we have no problem with a backup SSA.
Perfect. No, no. Thank you so
And that comes
much.
at a much later stage of this process. Right now, we're looking at simply the zoning entitlements to make sure that what they're proposing is appropriate for this property based on the discussion we're having.
And again, I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is going to be, but the sidewalk on the east side is again not apropos just because of the topography.
Right.
So we're going to go with the crosswalk
Yes.
going on to the other side, correct?
Yep, correct.
Okay, good. Good, that's it. That's all I got.
Okay? Thank you, Antonio.
I think the only concern that I brought up is, I guess I'm just gonna be the walkability guy. This is like the third week I've talked about it. Is there any, I didn't see any mention of it within the scope of this proposal. And it is proximal enough to downtown that there is an aspect of this community would be walkable to downtown Lake Zurich. So, in terms of assessing the walkability from this development to downtown, I don't think there's not any overhead lighting along Old Grand Road along that stretch. So is that under consideration from the village's perspective of how we can make this community more part of kind of the downtown sphere of influence.
Yes, so the very fact that they're providing the crosswalk from their Old Rand Road entrance across the street to the existing sidewalk, that existing sidewalk continues all the way to Route 22 and then crosses Route 22 into the Main Street area.
Okay.
And they're similarly doing the same thing on the east side of the development along Bushing Road as well. They're completing the walkability along their frontage. There is a vacant property just south of Algrim's, actually it belongs to Algrim's, that there is a little bit of a gap over there, but that will come when Algrim's develops. But otherwise, they are filling those gaps to our satisfaction at this point. We're additionally also requiring them to pay a fee in lieu of the portion of their frontage of the property with Old Rand Road that will not have a sidewalk. That's one of the conditions that we've added to our list of conditions for this approval.
Gotcha. And then just to go back to the lighting issue, so
Yes.
like to walk from that development to downtown, that stretch of Old Rand Road doesn't feature any lighting, so I
Yes.
think.
It is dark. We have not discussed that I will admit we haven't, and that could be something that we may talk with them about, installing a street light
I
or
mean,
two.
that darkness continues all the way up to the library. I mean,
Yes,
if you leave the downtown events and you want to walk out, you're walking in darkness.
And I think that's important, especially with what we're supposed to be listening to next week with the plan. And if in fact people are saying that they won't come into downtown unless we have the people there, they have to be able to walk to it. And they have to be able to walk to it safely. And this is one opportunity, just like with sidewalks, that to put in additional lighting now along that stretch is gonna make them feel more secure. Cars are gonna be seeing people. So I think this is a good opportunity to be able to do that, especially if we're gonna start to convey the message that people will walk downtown, so bring in more restaurants and do all these kind of things.
We will definitely bring our Public Works Department into the discussion when we start talking about the final plan for this project.
Good, thanks.
Okay, but discussion and committing to lighting, I mean, there's nothing there now, so nobody walks there, so it's really not an issue. But now you're gonna have homes, you're gonna have adults, you're gonna have children, you're gonna have people walking. To me, this isn't a discussion, I think it's something that needs to be addressed. There needs to be lighting on Rand Road and Bushing Road for this development, for those main streets. Otherwise, what's the point of the sidewalk at night?
The reason I mentioned discussion is because I need from Public Works to see whether they've already committed to it in their 25-year
I got it.
CIP, that's why. It may
Okay.
already be
So
part
it
of a
may already
long-term
be in the plan, or it'll be something that will be required by
yeah.
some, one way or the other.
Yes,
there
and
will
to
be
what
lighting.
extent, yes, exactly.
Yeah, because we don't want anybody walking along a dark road at night and being hit and
Understood,
terrible things happening.
yes, understood.
Mr. Hames, do you have lighting within the subdivision as proposed itself? Street lighting?
Yes, we do. It's been designed, our lighting engineer is not here tonight, but we do have a lighting engineer on board who has created a plan and provided photometric information. And so that's really just to the interior of the site. I wouldn't envision it would be a challenge for us to incorporate some of that lighting on the perimeter as well.
They have
You know,
also
there is a-
provided standards.
Yeah, we don't want to violate any other standards, so we'll have to make sure we don't.
Right.
And,
Detail of it next to the fence detail.
oh, and, okay, thank you. Along with the plan you've got now, I guess this might be a question for Mr. Freeman or Mr. Ames, I'm not sure. What kind of price point are you looking at for both the row houses and the single family?
Preliminary, but
Yeah.
The
understood.
single-family townhomes would be in the mid-fives starting, and the single-family homes are envisioned to start in the low 700s. I think the range is probably 700 to 800. We have a ways to go on that front, but that's the target at this point.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Yodi, were you set?
Wow. Well, okay, well, you answered one of my questions about price. Do the homes, the townhome, do they have basements?
They do not.
Okay. I think we've brought this up in the past, you know, something of this nature, you know, because it's a major subdivision, major homes. We've asked for examples of materials and things like that, you know. I mean, I'm not as construction savvy as maybe some of the other people on the commission, so I would be interested in samples, and I see a little bit of brick for $800,000. I would want, personally, I would expect more brick rather than less. So that kind of a little bit concerns me, not having an idea of what the exterior materials are gonna look like.
They did have a slide, I think, in your presentation.
Yeah, they
that
showed some brick, but when you look at the actual pictures, it's just little small sections of the exterior, and I think the three-story row homes along Bushing don't show, I think, any brick at all.
besides the
so-
base.
There are some that have, are you talking about the single-family homes on Bushing?
Yes, yes.
There is both stone and brick, actually.
Okay, so there's
Is
both.
that stone brick veneer, or is that brick?
It's not thin brick, no, it's standard brick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a point of clarification, I'm sorry, that was intense. It looks like in some of these renderings that some of them might feature basements, because I'm looking at the renderings of some of the homes on the elevations, and they feature windows.
What was that thing
and
at the bottom?
And I
Yeah.
wouldn't assume you'd want to look into the
The
crawl
single-family homes, yes.
Oh,
But we
okay.
earlier, we were talking about the attached, single-family
Oh, I was
townhomes.
asking about all
think
of
she
them.
meant row
Okay.
There's a
So the
difference.
townhomes do not have basements, but they're three-story.
Correct.
The single-family homes, whether they're the row homes along Bushing or the ones
Those are
that are,
single family.
those are those all have basements?
Yes.
Okay. And the HOA, does the HOA, obviously it handles snow removal and landscaping for the townhomes. Does the also handle it for the single-family homes, or is that the resident's responsibility?
Oh, I think they haven't been drawn yet, but I would think it would make sense to have a single association handle it. It would make no sense to have.
Well,
the
I agree, but.
No, it's, our present plan, to the extent that we planned that, would be that that would be, all be encompassed by the HOA for both.
Okay.
If I may add, particularly since these are private streets, not public streets where each home has direct access to
Right.
a public street, being the fact that the HOA will control the street and its maintenance.
Well, yeah, because you're gonna have to have, because they're private streets, you're gonna have to have private snowplow service anyway.
Right.
To covering all of them, so, and you're not gonna be able to distinguish between the private street in front of a single-family home and one in front of a townhome. So it's gonna have to be association managed.
Okay.
We typically ask the developers to provide us with their draft declarations prior to us transmitting a development agreement to the village board, and that usually happens during the final plan stage. We're still in the preliminary plan stage at this time.
I would anticipate, to follow up on Suresh's comment, that we anticipated submitting a declaration usually would be reviewed by the village attorney. For the express purpose, you're gonna want enforcement provisions in there and certain language that, we're agreeable to, but we don't know specifically what you want.
Right.
So I assume, and that's gonna have all of the maintenance obligations that you're asking about in there too. So it's going to be village reviewed. It has to be at the final stage, as I understand it.
Yeah, and the reason we ask for it, even though this is a private document between the homeowners and the developers, we ask for it so that we make sure that if there are certain conditions that we've placed in our ordinance, that those don't go into conflict with some clauses in the declaration. We just make sure that there are no conflicts.
Right,
Or
right.
something that's more flexible, that does not meet the requirements of our basic level of codes. It can be as strict as it wants. It could be stricter than our ordinance, but it should not be less strict than our ordinance.
And on the row home, this may be an obvious question first. There's no street parking on Bushing. I know there's none on Old Rand Road, but there's none on Bushing either?
Correct.
I don't really travel that much, so I'm just assuming there isn't. No, okay, so that won't be an issue. And with the row homes, on the drawings, I noticed there's the home, then you have green space shown, and then the detached garages. How big is that yard? I mean, first of all, I'm assuming fences will not be allowed. So
We have
individual-
not made any requirement for fences either to be or not to be allowed.
One way or the
That's
other?
entirely the development's prerogative. But go ahead if you'd like to answer that.
The question was the space between the house. These are
Is
the
there a
houses-
yard?
The houses on Bushing,
Right,
the space between the back of the house and the front of the garage.
yes.
I believe it's 20 feet. Might be a little bit more than that, but I think that's what it is. I'd have to
Okay.
dig into the plan to get the actual exact dimension.
So there, I wouldn't think then there'd be room for decks or patios, or, unless it was something very small, right?
They would have to do all of that between the garage and the house and make sure that minimum landscape surface area requirements are met. We do have a 60% requirement, and they've met that right now with the way it is proposed at this time. But if patios are added, that will add to the impervious surface, and we would obviously have to take each house considered in the context in which those decks and landscaping, those decks and patios are being
Right.
proposed.
Because that would have to be, considered or made obvious,
Yes. Because those also have ramifications towards stormwater management. The more impervious you add, the more you have to account for it in the detention areas.
And then in like 5 years, we'd have 6 people coming to us asking for variations, so they could add
So we
patios
will
and decks.
obviously be talking about all of
You know,
those
I mean,
things. Nope,
so-
You're making a very good point here, yeah.
Yeah, I've learned more than I ever wanted to about impervious, all that kind of stuff, so it kind of sticks in my mind.
Yeah. But they do have their civil engineer here to talk about those stormwater concerns, if you have a question about stormwater management.
Not really, not at this point.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I think that may be all I have. If somebody else has
Hilda,
other
you-
questions while we're discussing.
I want to ask something that you asked, which I'm a little confused. You asked, is there parking on Bushing? Is that what your question was?
Yeah. Street parking, is it allowed?
There's street parking when you go down by St. Francis and the development that's over there. So there is,
Liberty Lakes.
so technically, there is parking on Bushing. So the question I have is,
Is for this, where
Correct.
this is gonna
so
be.
that's what I'm asking. So
There is
I
no
agree.
dedicated parking, if that's your question, on Bushing for specifically this development, because they are accommodating all of it on their property
Right.
through the additional parking spaces that they've provided.
Yeah,
But
and-
will they be able to park on Bushing?
I would have to verify whether there is a no parking limit. I would imagine there is, but
Because
I
it
would have
does
to
get a
verify
little
that.
narrow there as it makes the turn.
Yes. Bushing on its own is a very wide
Yes,
paved
yes.
area, unusually wide compared to other
Do-
streets in.
But once
doesn't-
again,
Doesn't
the-
the village control that? I mean,
Yeah, we
Yeah,
control
yeah,
that.
and-
yeah, you can
but-
sign it as no parking. We don't intend to
You know,
to use
parking
it.
seems to be a huge issue, so
always- it
it's
always
always
is.
a big issue. And the folks that are gonna buy those row houses are gonna have parties, and people are gonna come, and they're gonna wanna park,
They
you
are.
know,
and that's-
wherever.
And they are, and every development has it, and every development has to have, as we are, guest spots. But we are not, and certainly people sometimes park on the street on those occasions. We're not planning on counting it or using it. We can't.
Right.
Lawrence,
mean, we can't- we-
I'm sorry. Part of the reason that we're asking the question isn't to challenge you and the project. It's because the trustees will see what we're talking about as we go forward.
I
So that's-
fully understand you're trying to make a record for review.
That's really
I
all we're trying
understand
to
that
do.
completely.
So we understand what you're saying, but we just want it for the record so that they hear our concerns as well.
Totally understood.
Okay.
I think I'm good for now.
No, a lot of the questions I had have already been asked and answered, so the crosswalk was the biggest thing. Cars are flying down there, so I think that's pretty important. Other than that, everything else has been answered.
Okay, thanks, Mike. John?
Yeah, similarly, most of my concerns have been addressed at this point. I guess for clarification, what has changed building materials wise? I know that was a concern of the board. Like, what has changed as far as materials?
From the previous.
This architect didn't draw the original plan, so I don't know if he can answer, and I'm trying to do it from my memory. But if you know, I think basically, the comments last time overall is they didn't like the look of it, and
Right.
they thought it needed more brick in certain views, not necessarily on everything. And it wasn't like I mean, this is a different plan with different vistas and different materials,
Sure.
but, so it's hard to compare.
No, I was trying to rack my brain from, sorry,
You
the last time we saw this, but yeah, from what I can recollect, the look looks pretty, almost exact from what we reviewed 2 years ago.
I think it actually looks quite different.
Okay.
But, if you don't mind. But I should mention Dennis Kulak was the architect who worked on the project previously.
Okay.
And we've kept him involved in this process. In fact, he was intending to be here tonight, but he has a health concern. So we've had that collaboration with him and had his feedback and had the benefit of his knowledge, from the prior experience and the feedback that was given, and we try to respond to it. I would answer the question by saying this: I think there is a great deal more richness in terms of the planarity of the facades, the ins and outs, and the detailing especially. The previous efforts were actually quite a bit simpler. And if you sort of study the finer elements of the detail, like the trim, the eaves, the base coursing, the porticos, that sort of thing, the porches, there's considerably more detail that's been paid attention to them.
I think there's more brick and more stone too than I recall.
Yeah, I can't be sure about that, but, we do have more
Design it.
variety for sure.
And the siding material itself is what?
Fiber cement.
Fiber cement, thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
And if I may just interject before we go on to the next comment, to answer the parking question, I did a quick Google Street View run along Bushing Road. There is no prohibition of parking along that. So, being the fact that there is no prohibition, if someone wants to park their car along the side during, for a 2-hour period, they are able to do that. Overnight parking may be a different matter.
Again, my only concern is that as Bushing meets up to Old Rand Road,
Yes,
the road narrows.
narrows down, correct.
It narrows down a lot, and if all of a sudden you've got one car on one side of the street, one on the other, and you've got those cars coming in to make that curve to get onto Old Rand Road,
Yep.
it's tight. When you go further to the north, I get it.
Yep.
It's 4 lanes, it's wide, it's real wide, but not at that section. So to me, it would almost behoove us to either put, if you're gonna have parking, it's only on one side or the other of Bushing, but not both, because it's gonna be way too narrow and you're making that curve.
And we control that, being the
Exactly.
fact that
I
it's a
just want
village
that for the
street.
record.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Scott?
The only question I had that hasn't been brought up, on the current site plan, and forgive my lack of knowledge on this, but it only shows sidewalk basically going to the very south property line. Is there any consideration to continue that to the south toward the intersection of Old Rand and Bushing? It's almost like a sidewalk to nowhere at this point.
The side, yeah, I can actually let you also partially answer that, but the sidewalk we looked at was, first of all, have sidewalk along the frontage of their property,
Exactly.
but more in terms of connecting it to the north towards our Main Street area. To the south, we have some of the older homes. As they redevelop, there is a potential for adding sidewalk over there, but the impetus was to bring connectivity towards the northerly side of the property as opposed to the southerly side. And so from the south end of the frontage of their property, they do have sidewalks connecting the front doors of their townhouse buildings to the main sidewalk, which then connects to that crosswalk, which then connects to the network, and also have a east-west sidewalk connection between Old Rand Road and Bushing Road. And then there are internal pedestrian walks in the open space and walks connecting the southerly loop, I guess, of the development that also kind of bring connectivity internally to the
To
development.
that open
Yeah.
space, yeah. Okay,
But I guess, like I said, the impetus was to connect more towards the north than towards the south.
understood. That was the only question I had.
Well, the one comment that I, have observed in looking at the plans compared to what we'd seen before is we had heard objections from the people on the other side of Bushing when there were going to be townhomes facing that, and those townhomes are now gone. These are single-family homes. So what we've done is we've eliminated that. I think the concern that was there was going to be too large, too grand of a impetus to what they were going to see from their single-family homes. So now it's single-family homes facing single-family homes. So by placing your product the way you have, you address the concerns that were raised before. as well as the fact that in this presentation, you have lowered the density substantially from what we'd saw originally was 56 and then 54,
And 250, yeah, 50 was,
and now we're down to 38. So that's a substantial.
Both of those were considerations.
could you get to the mic, because we are broadcasting this too?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, both of those comments we were aware of, and that went into our planning. In both, obviously, the density was, obviously, we were aware of it, we heard it over and over again.
Yeah.
But we also were cognizant of some of the objections from the south based on product. And that's why when we put single-family, that's where we specifically wanted it to go.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, can I ask another question?
Yes, absolutely.
Assuming the stars align and everything's worked out and we recommend approval, the village board approves it, et cetera, what's your commitment to then moving to get this done? And the reason I ask this is just because we've seen a lot of things come to us and then nothing happens for years. It just, so
Well,
you know the question.
I don't know the question. And it's a harder question to answer in today's economy than it would have been a few years ago.
True.
But we are a contract purchaser. We have had a very tolerant seller. I mean, the fact that we've been able to sustain this contract for 2 years is incredible. And once and if we get final approval, we have to buy the property. We're not buying to invest in a vacant piece of property. So as part of that and our closing and everything else, we are going to be planning to, as soon as possible, move forward with a construction loan and build. So I would say, if we're fortunate enough to get approval over the next 30 or 60 days or whatever it takes, and close right after that time, I don't know how quickly we'd get started going into the season with fall and everything else, but clearly, I think I can't imagine we wouldn't close on this if we weren't going to build it. We wouldn't invest the money and buy the land. And I would say we would be doing it early next year at the latest.
Okay, thank you.
I also I may add that there is still the step of final engineering that they have to go
Right,
through.
no, there's a lot of
Yeah.
things that, I understand that, I'm just,
Yeah.
it just seems like things,
Yes, I mean, from
Don't come
other
to
examples that
fruition.
we've seen, it's kind of like been on and off, depending on material prices, depending on the economy, depending on inflation. A lot of developers
mortgage
obviously
rates.
time their, and mortgage interest rates, yes.
Yeah, but I have to, from the developer's standpoint, when we close, we're going to package our ability to buy it and get the financing to build it, or we're not going to close. And if we weren't serious, we wouldn't have spent 2 years on this. So I would.
understood.
I mean, the economy could get drastically worse tomorrow and things could change, but it's not our plan to warehouse this.
Right, and that's why I said, assuming the stars align.
Yes,
I mean,
they'd have to align, but we want them to align it within the context that we know this is a difficult time. We're taking that into account.
And I think that's something that we like hearing, because we've got a dispensary that's going on 2.5 years, I think. So, I mean, we've got a lot of other projects that have come and just sit. And, we go through this thing about putting this village plan together, which means nothing if nothing happens. So when we talk about the impacts and we listen to people who come here to express their feelings as well, we also have to do our due diligence to say, hey, is this going to be something that's real? Is it viable? I mean, we can't have a project that all of a sudden, oh, you know what, guess what? We're going to look for the financing. And you know what? Just give us another year to get the financing. I appreciate what you're saying, Lawrence. We really do. But you have to understand what we hear here every month.
I understand it.
And it gets frustrating sometimes.
And I'm involved with projects for different clients that don't go ahead, but most do when they get to this stage. And when they get to the investment and time they put in on a project like this. I mean, Zurich is tired of seeing us.
He mentioned that
He won't
earlier.
admit it,
Yeah,
but-
He mentioned it earlier. He didn't put it in writing, though. did he?
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, other questions of petitioner? Do we have anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this item tonight? Okay.
Anyone else want to sign up? Why don't you add your name, and then the chairman will call the names out.
And let me just ask once, was everyone that's planning to come forward on this item, have they all been sworn in yet? Okay.
Oh, you haven't been sworn in yet.
He's not. He needs to be sworn in.
Okay.
I also noticed that David Hams and Larry Friedman also signed in, so.
Okay, yeah, we got that. So, Mary Ann Phillips?
Oh, my goodness.
Good evening. My name is Mary Ann Phillips, PHI-LLIPS. I live at 749 South Old Rand Road with my husband, Gary Levine, who also just signed in. I have been sworn in. And I just want to say, this looks like a very nice development. I moved here in February of 2024, so just recently. And the only thing I'd like to say is it's a nice development, but not in our neighborhood. Absolutely not in our neighborhood. Beautiful,
again, Mary Ann,
lots of time put into it.
Yeah, Mary Ann, where did you say you live? I'm sorry.
749 South Old Rand Road.
Okay, good.
I am just kitty corner from where the proposed development is going to go in. I wanted to just enter into the record as a reminder to the members of the board what the zoning code for Lake Zurich is. And it's to maintain Lake Zurich as a community comprised principally of well-maintained, single-family residential neighborhoods, which is exactly what is there now. A single family, the Redbridge Farms, Heatherly, and the homes along South Old Rand Road are single-family homes. The land use, under 1102, land use patterns establish a rational pattern of land use to encourage the most appropriate use of the land. Number 3, under 1102B, is to encourage compatibility between land uses and protect the scale and character of existing developments from the encroachment of less or incompatible uses. Number 4 is to encourage and promote detached single-family homes as the principal land use of the village. Number 6 is to protect the public, that would be me, from the harm from loss of natural resources, aesthetic amenities, and natural features in the presentation and the preservation of wetlands. This is a wetlands area that they are proposing on developing. And to secure adequate natural light, air, privacy, and convenient access to property. Again, that would be the public, that would be us, those people who are going to be affected by this particular development. This development that's proposed violates the specifics and the spirit of all of those provisions of the Lake Zurich Code, existing Lake Zurich Code. I noticed on page 5 of the report regarding section E, with respect to the trend of development, which seems to be the rationale for the building of a multi-unit family dwellings in this tiny area, the 6.7 acre area, 38 homes, including 5 buildings with 20 homes in them. And your point that I wanted to address specifically was, yes, the new proposal with 38 homes does put the 18 homes along Bushing Road, but that means that the 5 developments, specifically 3 of them, three-story, comprised of 12 units, would be along Old Rand Road, which is where I live. And I will be looking at those 3-story homes directly across the street from my house. The rationale on page 5 given for allowing this development to go forward is that many of the homes in the immediate vicinity, which would be my home, which was built in the 50s, are of an older vintage and likely to be replaced with newer homes. That statement has nothing to substantiate it. We just purchased our home in February. We're not planning on tearing it down. The homes across the street from us, I spoke to the people specifically. Nobody is planning on tearing down their home, despite the fact that they are older vintage homes, which means, I'm not sure if that's a euphemism for old and junky or old and worn down, but the homes in our neighborhood are beautiful and they're beautifully maintained. And there's no reason to believe that people moving into them, like my husband and I, who are the empty nesters that are referred to in the report, would be tearing down our homes to build a bigger, more grand home. So again, a totally unsubstantiated rationale for why this would be an appropriate transition home. Again, stating that this development would be considered keeping with the trend of multi-story units. There is no trend for multi-story units in our neighborhood. The existing homes are not multi-story units. The existing homes are single-family detached with, in our case, a half an acre of land. The reason why we moved there was because of the beautiful trees. We're surrounded by a half an acre of trees, along with the land that the village owns, which is adjacent to Heatherly. Again, beautiful, open, natural air and light. That was the reason why we moved there. And now we're seeing that there's some alleged trend to multi-story units. You mentioned that the density is in keeping with other homes in the village. That's great. That's not the immediate vicinity. The homes in the village include all the condos on Main Street. Just to go back in time, 40 years ago, when I was in college, I had a friend of mine who lived on Robertson Road, right along the lake, and there was not one townhome on Main Street. It was beautiful. Again, the whole purpose of the zoning code is to encourage views of the lake. I was very disappointed to see when I started working at Allstate in South Barrington that huge multi-story condominiums were built on Main Street, completely blocking the view of the lake. And it's my understanding that there's going to be more of them built, again, further impeding the view of the lake. That's fine. That's not my neighborhood. That is not the existing area and the existing characteristics of the home in that neighborhood. That density is not 5.3 units per acre. We have half an acre and we have 1 unit. So continuing on, I was, again, reviewing the report, the special use standards. Again, this is the minimum acreage. I just, regarding the density, just addressed that issue. Looking at the page 12 of the report, the general standards, 5.3 units per acre, not in keeping with the development in the vicinity. Number 2, under the general standards set forth on page 12, no adverse impact. Again, that statement that is on that report is completely unsubstantiated. There has not been one person here until I spoke that talked about what the impact on our neighborhoods would be. There would be a substantial impact on our neighborhoods. There would be more traffic. There would be more, again, there's already an enormous amount of traffic, and I'll get to that in a minute with respect to the report, enormous amount of traffic up and down Old Rand Road, and the stated speed limit is 30 miles an hour, which nobody goes 30 miles an hour. There's no impeding any of that traffic between the stoplight at 22 and the stop sign at Pheasant Ridge. People speed down there, and there is a difference in grade, so you've got people going over those hills at 45 to 50 miles an hour. I've never seen one police officer since I've been here stopping anybody. I haven't seen any type of, there's at least flashing stop signs in front of Pheasant Ridge, but there's nothing at Bushing. So in any event, there would be undue adverse impact on our neighborhood by the addition of 38 homes. Consistent with surrounding development and land use. Again, absolutely not. This is not consistent surrounding development. It went from 50 homes to 42 homes to 40 homes, and now it's down. The most recent proposal, which was considered in July of 2023, was 40 homes. It's gone down 2 homes, from 40 homes to 38 homes. So putting 20 multifamily units in 5 buildings is not consistent in any way, shape, or form with the neighborhoods that surround it. As far as Page 13, one of the standards, not to dominate the immediate vicinity. Again, there will be three buildings, three-story buildings directly on South Old Rand Road, which will, of course, dominate the immediate vicinity. All of those homes are tiny. Ours is a Cape Cod with a sort of a split-level Cape Cod. The remaining homes south of there are ranch homes. So by definition, three multi-story unit homes will dominate the immediate vicinity. Striving for compatibility is not what this particular development does. No traffic congestion. I have a question for you. I'm sorry,
Speak to
I
the
have a
mic.
question for the panel. I could not find in the packet the Erickson traffic study that was referenced there. And Mr. Cochran's report, I don't know when that report was written, but I'd like to know when that traffic study was conducted. Exactly when did they begin measuring the traffic on South Old Rand and Bushing roads? Does
Mr.
anyone
Roach, do you
have
know
the
the
answer
answer,
to
or do
that?
we need the petitioner to answer that for us?
I have an understanding of what it is based on prior hearings and from another person that I've spoken with in my neighborhood. And it was my understanding that that traffic study, again, based on what I understand, was conducted, the traffic study was conducted, not necessarily the report written, was conducted in 2020, which, if that is in fact the case, it makes absolutely no sense. So if the traffic study was conducted in 2020 during COVID, then I would hazard to say that there is no relevance to what the traffic is in 2024, 4 years later.
We'll get that answer for you.
Okay, I appreciate that. I saw that the traffic congestion number 5, this again mentioned on page 13 of the report, projects what the peak hours are, and a projection is not a fact, as we know. Projection is projection. That does not specifically state exactly what the traffic patterns were. And the possible, page 14, the positive effect. I can't think of a positive effect on our neighborhood. It's just going to be more congested. There's the traffic will be impeded further. There'll be more cars, whizzing in and out. There's going to be more people coming in and out I can't, and there's going to be completely out of characteristic three-story homes dominating my view of South Old Rand Road, what used to be trees, and putting shrubs and some evergreens along the perimeter of the neighborhood is absolutely not going to impede the view of a three-story home looking down over the remaining houses, single-family ranch homes in the area. So the consideration benefit, which is mentioned again on page 15, it says that this neighborhood provides a transition to the more industrial areas. Although there's no industrial areas in that particular area, the more industrial business areas. It does not provide a transition. It's completely out of keeping with the current context and the current nature and the current aesthetics of the homes in the immediate vicinity. My husband and I are empty nesters. One of the things that was mentioned was that it will provide homes for empty nesters and new families who are looking to relocate to the area. I don't know about you, but first-time homeowners, I don't know a lot of first-time homeowners spending $700,000 on a single-family home, or $500,000 for empty nesters for a two-story or three-story condo. Empty nesters, like myself and my husband, are buying ranch homes with a less limited footprint so that we can enjoy our time and not have to worry about keeping up with, a 2,700 square foot, three-story home. So again, these sort of made up rationales for why it would be appropriate to put this multi-family units in our immediate neighborhood make no sense, and there's no substantiation for them whatsoever. So this proposal, even as it's been modified, conflicts with the purpose of encouraging single-family homes in the principal land use of the village. And again, that is what your overarching principle is supposed to be, encouraging single-family homes. There is no shortage of multi-unit family homes in Lake Zurich. You've already mentioned the density reports for all the different places in the village. That's great, but that's not in the middle of Heatherly, it's not in the middle of Redbridge Farms, and it's not in the middle of all of the different single-family small homes in our neighborhood. The traffic patterns have changed. If in fact the traffic report was done, or the traffic study was done in 2020, traffic patterns have changed in the last 4 years. Since the study, and the projection is not a reflection of what the reality is of living along South Old Rand Road, and the fact that there are cars going 30 to 40 miles an hour that are not being stopped or not being impeded in any way, shape, or form. Again, I'm not alone in opposing this public use development. There are people here, I know, who have been opposed to this since the beginning. One in particular who has spoken out at every meeting. I've spoken with her. I texted with neighbors, and all of them, every single neighbor is opposed to this. We moved here for peace, quiet, air, light, and privacy. And having a 3-story building, I'm speaking for my neighbor directly across the street, 700 Old Rand Road. I don't believe she's here tonight, but she will have a 3-story home literally next to her driveway. A 3-story home separated by a 6-foot fence. That's it. So here's the 6-foot fence, and then you've got a 3-story home towering over it, staring into her driveway. So I just want to say in closing, there's nobody in our neighborhood that I'm aware of that is in favor of this. We don't believe it's a benefit. It's very nice. It's a beautiful design. I know that there's been a lot of work that's gone into it, but just because somebody asks to do it doesn't mean that you have to say yes, especially in light of what the existing Lake Zurich codes are. So,
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Next, I believe it's Bill Hardig. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Thank you. And for Colleen, would you spell that, please, for Colleen?
Yes, my name is Bill Hartig. Its last name is Hartig.
Thank you.
I
And your
live at
address?
449 Farm Bridge Road.
Okay.
So if you looked at the schematic that was up there, my house is in the bottom right corner. Farm Bridge, my house is like one house off of Bushing Road.
Okay.
So, I wish I had as much prep that Mary Ann had. And I agree with everything she says, and she's been here less than a year. I've lived in Lake Zurich since 1989. I moved out here for the exact reasons why Mary Ann moved out here. And, I'm just gonna keep it short. So the question to you guys is, when is enough enough? Have you tried driving down Rand Road on a Saturday? What's it like? Not only because of Lake Zurich development, others, but when's it gonna stop? It's terrible. I guess a couple other questions, the intersection at Grand and Rand and Bushing, that has to be one of the worst intersections in the city. I myself got into an accident there, and I see ambulances there, I see police cars, fire trucks there. I don't know what the actual stats are, but I have to imagine it's one of the worst, it's one of the, more, poor intersections in the area. Just a couple notes here. Again, when I moved out to Lake Zurich, most of the development along Rand wasn't there. So it was great. It was nice. It was quiet. It was bearable. Again, I moved out here for the same reasons that Mary Ann did. It was just a great place to be peaceful peaceful living, and we just don't have that anymore. Just the other couple notes, you know, like you said, on one of the intersections, the assessment is a C. How do we live with a C? Why is a C good enough? You know, we're gonna make it even worse of a C. What, C minus? You know, that doesn't seem too good to me. Just a couple, you know, I didn't really hear a lot of the impacts to Bushing Road, you know, and I know for a fact I see people parking on Bushing down toward the intersection. There are no parking signs. So again, I'll be able to take a baseball from my front yard and hit probably one of those houses. And if they have parties and stuff like that, it's just gonna make that traffic along that road and just much more congested. You know, what I didn't hear is what's the setback gonna be from the houses that are gonna be facing Bushing? You know, how far back are they gonna be set off the road? Are they gonna be right on top of the road? Or are they gonna be pushed back? I guess I didn't hear that question. Another question I have is has there been a wildlife study that's been done? Has there? I know for a fact that almost on an annual basis, multiple times, I'll find turtles walking across Bushing Road, and I'll pick them up and I'll put them over into the wetland area. I see coyotes and other things like that are coming through the area. I see other, you know, wildlife that's coming through here. You know, what's the impact going to be to that? Do we know? Has there been a study done? Again, so really that's, you know, just some things off the top of my head. Again, my question to you guys is, when's enough enough?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Okay. Elise Hood.
Hi, everybody. My name is Elise Hood. I live at 739 Hanley Court. I live in Heatherly subdivision in the cul-de-sac, right along the pond that will be across from this proposed community. Thank you for allowing me to voice my concerns over this. I have been here since day one. And if you'll indulge me in just, you know, a few moments, I'm going to tell you what we've gone through and how much we've gone through and how many things have changed, but it's not changed enough. The land is 9.3 acres, and the wetland area takes out 2.1. So it leaves a little less than 7 acres that is buildable. So in this 7 acres, you're going to build this new community. And you can't call it 9.3 because it's not. So this is the 4th time I'm here regarding this. The first time was October 3rd, 2022. And at that point, it was 52 units and 12 buildings. And this is important that I'm saying this, because 52 units and 12 buildings. So the board was concerned about density being number one issue. The height of the building was another issue, parking, snow removal, wetlands, storm water management, and an increase in traffic. The second time I was here was January 3rd, 2023, and we went down to 50 units in 12 buildings. So they decreased 2 units, but still the same amount of buildings. So the concerns were visitor parking, 3-story units, and the proposal was actually denied by the village board. It was denied, due to number 1, the density, and number 2, the wetlands. The suggestion by the board was to remove 3 buildings and 14 units. Okay, so that's kind of important. Get rid of 3 buildings, 14 units. So now the third time we're here is July 17th, 2023. There's 40 units and 11 buildings. Okay, so we've decreased 1 building, and 10 units since this has started. Okay, and the board response to this was, again, density is the number 1 issue. Decrease the number of and there was a decrease in the number of parking spots. So the board's suggestion of cutting 2 or more buildings at this time. So yet we still have only cut 1 building. Now they're saying cut 2 more. Okay, so today, June 19th, 2024, this is my 4th time coming here. Now we're at 38 units, but now we have 23 buildings. Okay, so we only decreased, again, 2 units. But now we've gone from the July 23 proposal of, and now there's many more buildings. So we have 12 single-family homes, 6 single-family homes with detached garages, and then 20 units and 5 buildings, which are still 3 stories high. And now those buildings are going to be towards my neighborhood, my area, where I'm gonna have this vision for us to see. So now we're at 38 units and 23 buildings. So the past concerns are still, density is the number one issue. It's still the number one issue. The snow removal, I think that's been addressed. I don't know where they're gonna put the snow, but I think it's been addressed. Traffic on Old Rand Road is a cut-through because Rand Road is a nightmare now. And the increasing numbers of potholes on Old Rand indicate heavy usage. So this area does not need an even greater increase in traffic and noise. The row home height, I just said which moved to Old Rand. The visitor parking spaces, I said now the proposed community will have an HOA. So not only are they gonna have pretty high prices for these smaller single-family homes and townhomes, they're also gonna have a homeowners association, which single, people buying for the first time, they're not gonna be able to afford all that, and that's not obviously my concern. But there's still a higher percentage of row townhome units than single-family homes in this new proposal. And that's always been our concern from day one. So again, 2 units have been reduced, okay? So we've gone from the beginning, when we had 52 units in 12 buildings, and now we're back to 38. So we've only decreased that many units. So the last board meeting suggested, and this is from the board, to cut 2 or more buildings. So in my eyes, that would equate to cutting at least a decrease of 8 units, and that has not been done. So maybe turn the row homes into single-family homes, which has been suggested pretty much all along. So I implore this board to consider what is best for the community. And clearly, I mean, this is a better proposal. I would be happy to even say that. I know that a lot of work has gone into it, and I appreciate that. But it's still too dense. It's still too crowded. And talking about the wildlife, this morning in my backyard, I had 2 coyotes in my backyard, and I actually recorded them. One of them was in my backyard. He jumped over the fence. I mean, where are they gonna go? And I get that, that's not here nor there, that's not the biggest concern. My concern is the density, and it's always been an issue, and it still continues to be an issue. So until we can get that down, I would say please vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hood. Next on the sheet is Zurich Patel. I'm not sure I said that correctly.
Yes, that's right. Chirag. Hi, hello everyone.
Hello.
Want to make a couple of comments.
I'm sorry, for Colleen, would you spell that for her, please?
Yeah, Chirag Patel, Chirag. Last name is Patel, Patel. And I live on 747 Handley Court, right next to Ellis Hood. A few comments I want to make.
Okay.
Marianne, you belong here and here. We need people who speaks for the residents.
I'm sorry,
Okay,
sir.
so please
You have
speak
to speak
into
to the
the mic.
microphone.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
So Marianne, we need people like you to be sitting there and there. We need people like you who represents the residents of Lake Zurich. Thank you, very, very well said. So the board made a comment. Again, thank you for listening to our comments. Really appreciate your time. Village of Lake Zurich, that's what you said, right? Village, what's a village? I mean, people come here from city to the village so they can enjoy peace and calm. We have been here for last 30 years. In the last 30 years, situation has gotten worse and worse. On Cuba and Rand Road, it was used to be all green trees, 40, 50 years old tree. You made that comment. Right? What do we have there? Right? Wildlife that used to live there, where are they going? They're going away from Lake Zurich. No one addressed wildlife issues, right? It's nice, everyone's here to make a living, but we want to keep the village as a village. Please do not turn into a city. Few years ago, two girls walking through across the Lake Zurich High School on the side, they were run over by a driver at night, okay? We don't have there's a slope on the Old Rand Road, there is a blind spot. People, even though the sign says 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour, people speed at 60 miles an hour. No one ever gets a ticket. Consider people walking to the sidewalk or crosswalk at night with no lights. People can lose more lives. We don't need too many people. I mean, somebody made a comment, we have 700,000 already in Lake Zurich? How many? How many more we want to have in Lake Zurich? Please, board, listen to us. Everyone's busy. We spend time from our personal lives to come here. Please turn down this proposal. Build single-family homes. We don't need multifamily homes. We have enough. We have enough. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Jerry and Terry Volkman? Do we have one spokesperson or two? And were you both sworn in? Yes. Okay, good, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jerry.
I'm Terry.
Okay. We are spelled V like Victor, O-L-K-M-A-N, and Jerry and Terry are like they sound. Gerald and Teresa, if you want to be formal. We are residents for 22 years here on 771 Hanley Court, also in the Heather Lee subdivision. We moved here from Buffalo Grove, and what we were looking for, we were thrilled when the Heather Lee development was opening up. I've been a member of the Illinois Audubon Society since, are you ready for this, 1968, when I was just a school kid. What Lake Zurich has is a wonderful wildlife and natural beauty and culture. It also, much to Mary Ann's great credit, the single family culture that is here is of such high value. It's what attracts people here. I dare say the preponderance of multifamily sprout-ups will take that attractiveness away. You won't even hear it because no one's going to survey it. It'll be people like us that go, honey, it's time to go. Here goes the hood is going to another direction that we don't like. I love what we have now. I saw the video of the coyote this morning. Coyotes aren't very desirable, but they are part of something that's going to get further displaced when you cut down some more acreage to make homes. And I think the aesthetics of what Lake Zurich has been for all its history is slowly dying. When this board has the chance, if you think about it, I admire developers. They do a great job. I'm very impressed with the work that's been done in the diligence. But I must say, at the end of all this, there is a profit motive that says, how many units can we get on a parcel of land and make this as profitable as possible? That is in direct conflict with how much do we do to keep the quality of life and the lower population density that makes this place so desirable. They're trading directly against each other. And you sit in positions of authority with a lot of knowledge and experience. And by doing so, you're gatekeeping on what will happen. It'll be progress, I got to put it in quotes, toward further developments. I know I'd never want to live in a multifamily setting. I did it as a young person, and we couldn't wait to get away from the common walls and the things that, multifamily dwellings pose. So I also plead with you to have the courage to think about the good of the many over the good of the few, and please vote this down and don't recommend it for further pursuit.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Oh, and Terry, I still miss Harry.
Oh. Thank you.
That's my late dad, by the way.
And then do we have a Gary Levine?
I've not been sworn in.
All right, then let's do that. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, good, thank you.
And I'm going to be very brief. I know it's late. But I noticed in the presentation that there was one thing that wasn't addressed.
I'm sorry, Gary, your address, I know, if you would, just for the record.
L-E-V as in Victor, I-N-E.
And the address.
749 South Old Rand Road. So I'm Mary Ann's husband, and I will be a lot shorter.
Okay.
There's one thing that was not mentioned, and first off, we love it here. We love our house. It's a beautiful house, and we have these nice woods in the back, so it's great. We do live with the traffic on Old Rand Road, and that's really my concern. So Old Rand Road's kind of an interesting road. If you look up if you go south from 22, it's 3 lanes. So when you go into Heatherly, there's a left turn lane if you're coming from the south. So as you go from 22 south, it's 3 lanes, and then once it gets past Heatherly, it narrows into 2 lanes. And then once it gets past Bushing, it opens back up into 4 lanes. It's a very interesting road. So what I did not see, and I'm not a traffic engineer, I'm an attorney by trade, and not a real estate attorney. But what I didn't see is how the way that road is, you're putting this intersection in the narrowest part of that road. And so my concern is in 5 years, are we going to have to expand Old Rand Road? Because right now, it doesn't make any sense, because if you look from Heatherly north up to the library, there's a turn lane in the middle. And there's a reason, because that's a lot of traffic goes in and out. And that turn lane's there for a reason. Someone put it there. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a planner. Someone planned it out that way. And then south, past when Bushing comes in, it goes to 4 lanes. Again, traffic engineers figured that out. Why is it we're going to put this intersection in where it's in the narrowest? And I mean, are we going to have to widen the road? And if we widen the road, it's going to affect us, and so that's going to cost the village money. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your
All
time.
right,
and
thank you, Mr. Levine.
tonight.
Thank you. Okay, so back to some of the questions that were raised. Mr. Roche, I know Ms. Phillips mentioned the traffic study date. Mike pointed out, I think the date of the study was, you want to answer that for us?
The date of the traffic study was done on Tuesday, April 16th, 2024, beginning at 7 a.m. until 9 a.m., and then picking back up again from 4 until 6 p.m. Those are considered the peak times. And I looked at the weather to see what the weather was that day. It shows that it was on Tuesday, April 16th, a high of 70 and a low of 52 in the evening with cloudy skies.
All right, thank you.
And the traffic study in our report packet is on page 201.
And Mr. Levine's comment about the intersecting onto Old Rand was basically mirrored what my concern was in terms of that traffic flow at that point, in terms of line of sight and everything else. So absolutely, we want that looked at as far as part of this proposal presentation going forward, because that I see as a concern.
Will IDOT look at this?
No, because it's our road.
Oh, it's our road.
This is not
Is
an
it the-
IDOT road. This is,
Okay,
both
And
sides are Lake Zurich roads.
okay.
Mr. Harding mentioned the setback on Bushing to those homes facing Bushing. And I think in the packet that's listed as what, Sarosh, 20-some feet back?
Yes, I'll have to clarify,
25.
25 feet.
25 feet back from the street. So there is setback for those homes on Bushing.
That is our standard setback.
And so that's stressed. But one thing, Sarosh, because I know that Ms. Phillips had gone through what I would like to do, because unfortunately for this presenter, he doesn't get a lot of the everything green that our other presenter had this evening. We have some cautionary, no red, but we have some cautionary font. So Sarosh, would you please explain to the people in the audience this evening, as well as to the commission members, what the cautions are in your staff comments?
I'll go by page numbers, starting on page 10, under standard of landscape and perimeter treatment. The reason we made that a cautionary is because the landscaping as proposed was not based on a test against the standards that require us to see what the exact plant numbers were. And we have asked the landscape architect to actually propose those actual numbers so that we can test them against the standards to see whether they meet the standard or whether a modification needs to be granted. Moving on to page 11, actually page 10, the sidewalks. We talked about recommending a 5-foot sidewalk constructed along the frontage of the property, but being the fact that the topography may not allow a sidewalk to be constructed, staff is recommending a fee in lieu of sidewalk that goes towards a fund that constructs or maintains sidewalks, not just in this neighborhood, but in other locations in Lake Zurich. I'll add right here, though, that one of the recommendations that we are looking at from the comprehensive plan consultant is also to look at connectivity through sidewalks. So this standard would also feed into that recommendation of the comprehensive plan. The next one was standard number 9, utilities. Because we were recommending sidewalks to be constructed along Bushing Road, and those sidewalks which may come into conflict with existing overhead cables, overhead utilities, we were requiring that if there is a conflict, that those utilities be buried. Moving on to page 12, the no undue adverse impact. The reason we cautioned this one was because of the greater number of units being proposed on single-family lots based on the narrow lots that were being proposed, with the fact that some of these homes would actually be closer to each other. That's an unusual proposal, but not unseen in Lake Zurich or some of our surrounding properties. And so we wanted to caution the community, saying that while this is unusual, but something that has worked before, we wanted you to just know that modifications to the code would be required in order to allow this non-conventional type of single-family layout.
All right, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that.
And I think that was it.
Yeah. And, in hearing some of the comments that were directed to us about the project, they don't fall on deaf ears, but at the same time, we have looked at numerous versions of what this project is, and if it's not this project, as the village has grown and as we have filled in all of the open spaces within the village, which is just part of a village natural growth, it's the dynamic, it's what happens. It is reasonable to expect that this parcel is going to be developed. The owner of the property that has it now, he's entitled to move on with his life and to sell his property. And our mission as a commission is to make sure that the character and flavor of what that development is going to be is in keeping with what we want to see within the village. We are not in a position to want to stonewall things, and we don't want to deny a private owner what he can do with his property. He's entitled to sell his property and move on. We had that issue when Lifetime was before us, because everyone was bemoaning the fact that Hackney's was gone. Hackney's was going away. The people wanted to retire. They'd had a very long life working at that quarter. They wanted to move on. And they were entitled to do that. And we, as a commission, we went through numerous meetings, as we are this evening on this one, and heard many, people that weighed in on that. And it was a good process, because by listening to the comments that were made as that project was being developed, the village of Lake Zurich ended up with a better project because of the comments and the changes, the modifications that were done. That same process has been at work on this particular parcel. This particular petitioner has been before this commission. He's been before the village board at large. And I will say that he has heard what the comments have been, and he has made substantial changes. He can't eliminate everything he wants to build. He has to have something that's going to be workable for him, but he's been working with our staff, and they've gone through the process. And Papa James is an excellent architectural firm. Happy to see him on board with this project. I think, we just need to, our commission deliberation needs to be on the basis of, not people on Old Rand, not people in Heatherly, but the village at large. Is this going to benefit the village and all the population of the village? And that's what we need to deliberate on. That's what we need to look at in terms of what we're looking at. We look at materials, we talked about that. We want to see what those materials are and what the construction's going to be. We have staff that, even after this process this evening, before it moves forward to, actual, dirt being turned, there's gonna be a whole lot more review on what those characters of those the homes themselves are going to be, to make sure everything's addressed. So I have confidence in the process. The people I've heard speak tonight, as far as I'm concerned, you're all relative newcomers. I've been here since 1976. I was here before many of those homes. Heatherly was built, before Red Bridge was built. Those all encroached on me, okay? But that's all part of the growth of the village, and I've been happy to see the direction the village has gone. That's why I participate in this process. I want to keep seeing us make improvements. Those are just my comments.
Can I add one more thing? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I know one of the comments that were made was about the natural species on the existing property, the turtles, I guess. One of the requirements we have during the final engineering and the final plan process is to have an EcoCat study done, which is called an ecological compliance assessment tool that actually looks at and evaluates whether there are any threatened species on the property and what can be done to either relocate those or protect them. I just wanted to mention that. So it's not something that we are avoiding or ignoring. It is part of the process, but that'll come at a later stage when we go into the final, very detailed analysis of the site engineering and the environment, stormwater management, wetland management, and the ecological management of the site.
Thank you, Sarosh. And that's important clarification. Glad to get that on the record, too. Thank you. Okay, commissioners?
Are we going to deliberation now?
Do we want to move deliberation?
You have to close.
We've heard the
Close the
testimony.
hearing.
We have to close it and
We're
then
ready
go
for
to
that?
deliberation.
All right.
Yes.
Then I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing and move to on application PZC 2024-08.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, Mike. Call the roll, please, Colleen.
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Gloaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Marks,
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Muir,
Aye.
Commissioner Schultz,
Aye.
Chairman Stratman.
Aye. Okay, deliberation. We'll start with you, Antonio.
Thank you, Orlando.
And for those that in the audience that are new this evening to us, Antonio is the vice chair. Is your plaque say that?
No, but it's okay. I don't need it. It's part of what I was about to say.
His virtual business card.
I sit up here because I want to. I don't need 15 minutes of fame. I have a lot of that. I'm a professional actor. I don't need to have fame to be up here. So what I do here, and I've been here, like Orlando, not as long as Orlando, but I've been here since 1985, and I've seen this village grow to where it is today. I met Mike a million years ago. We worked a lot. So I know what goes on in this village. My kids swam with the Volkman kids, so I know them too. I've been and I know a lot of the people here, and I know what is going on. I listen to people. When Lifetime came before us, as Orlando stated, that came before us 4 months for a reason, and it wasn't because we enjoyed sitting up here. It's because we listened, and what was developed because we listened, and we do listen. So from that standpoint, I want to make sure that people like Mr. Patel understand that we're not up here just because. We don't have an ego. We don't get paid to be up here. We have business lives ourselves. I mean, I could be doing something else other than sitting up here right now and enjoying it. So from that standpoint, I want to assure each and every one of you sitting there that we do listen to you. It may not seem that way, but that's a fact. We do listen to you. Now, that said, part of what I see here, and it's one of the themes that I have to stand with what I did with Lifetime, Those 5 buildings are big. They're tall. I took the same position with Lifetime that it was huge. They had to bury the first floor for me to say, let's go on with this. I can't disagree with Marion's comments about what she's going to be looking at, this 3-story building, all right? I can't even say that she'd be happy with a 2-story building, but some of the homes are 2 stories, so it's going to be approximately the same height. What I haven't seen change for me is that this is still too dense. It's a lot. We're still shoehorning this thing in. And if in fact the price point, which Hildy asked what the price point was because of how many units they've had to come down on, and now you've got units that are 500 to 750,000 for these homes. I'm sorry, unless you're telling me these guys are going to Stevenson, it's just not practical for me to be here and look at this. I cannot sit here in all earnest and say, oh, you know what? And I love animals, but I can't be in favor of, what am I going to do to protect the wildlife? Whether it's a turtle, whether it's a coyote, whether it's a rabbit, whether it's a chipmunk. Hey, I can't. And we know that in the city of Chicago, which is all big buildings, they have coyotes.
They won't
So,
leave.
I mean, they don't go away.
We have lots
They're
of small
around.
dogs.
All right? So from that standpoint, I'm with you, Orlando, in the sense that we have to see progress as it goes, and we know that progress is gonna come. Look at every suburb there is, And when the suburbs don't want it, they throw it back at us. I get that part. But for me, it's about how is this best done in such a way that it doesn't impact the neighborhoods that are out there. It increases their values. If you're gonna have a $700,000 home, it's gonna increase the values if you're right across the street. But you can't have it where they're just townhouses and we're gonna shoehorn them in. We've already seen some of those projects. There's one over by me, off of Cuba, right behind Walgreens, that originally were gonna be townhomes, and then they didn't, so they made them little condos type of things and shoehorned them in. I forget the name of the suburbs, right behind Walgreens, all right?
Yeah.
And so we have those. Do they exist? Yeah, they exist. Do they look great? No, they don't look great, but they're there. That doesn't mean we have to keep making the same mistake, for me. So for me, this is really heavily dense. It's not there yet. It's something that I can see can live harmoniously in a neighborhood with some more redirection, whatever that's going to be. And if Lifetime acquiesced, did to our requests to make it not smaller, but bury the first floor, and I'm not telling them to do that, but to do something different. Remember, they didn't want to. They fought us tooth and nail until we said, then don't come back. Oh, no, okay, fine, we'll go ahead and do it. And they did it, and they live harmoniously now with that neighborhood behind them because we listened, because they listened. This has got to be about collaboration. This is what communication is all about. That's why we do listen to you. We have our ways of seeing things, and on top of that, we don't make the decision. Let's make that perfectly clear. We send it to the people you elected, the trustees. They make the decision. All we do is send it for approval with a recommendation. That's all, or a recommendation to deny. So that's kind of where we're at. And those are my 2 cents for what I have to say for today.
Thanks, Antonio. Jay?
That was very eloquent. I don't know if I'll be able to top that, so. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I might be the resident young person on the board. So I do hear a lot of the sentiments amongst the community of, I wish things would stay the same, but change is the only constant in life. And to Orlando's point, the village of Lake Zurich was going to fill in one way or another. So in considering this sort of development, we have to think about what this private landowner has at their disposal to do. And will we prefer a development that gives access to more people, more access to young families to come in and procure homes? And now there are macro conditions which none of us have any sort of control over. The house being $700,000, that's a market condition due to supply and demand and the inflationary environment in which we're dealing with. So, in my mind, this is a binary between, do we want to see a brick mansion put up on this plot of land, which is going to ruin the bucolic aesthetic around some of these homes? there is a balance there, but in my mind, there is a greater consideration, to Orlando's point, for the village writ large, for people who are in my demographic, will they have access to a place like Zurich and come to enjoy? So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about the village's trajectory and plan writ large and not, backyard by backyard.
Thank you, Jed. Gilding?
Well, I'll be very honest, I'm very divided about this. I think, it's disingenuous to think that when you move to an area that has open space, that's subject to being for sale, that one day it's not gonna be sold, okay? So that's a fact of life. So the question is, does it make sense for this to go there? I mean, I understand the concerns about the townhouses off of Old Rand Road and having to look at those. I mean, as I'm looking at just, the layout, could you move the townhouses into the center part and put single-family homes perhaps on? Could you do some other, I don't know, I'm not an architect, I don't know why this was designed the way it was designed. I personally am not a fan. I don't see row houses selling very well. You mentioned Stevenson High School. Anything they put up that says Stevenson High School sells like that, well, they put up row houses on the corner of 22 and Quinton. That's not Lake Zurich, that's what, Kildare, I think? Hawthorne Woods. Those aren't selling as rapidly as one would have expected. That's been under construction for years, and there's still a lot of empties in there. So I don't think I don't know. I'm not a real estate person, so I don't understand why, we went with, I guess, the recommendation of 6 row houses as opposed to 4 single-family homes. I don't know, but 5, no, there's 6. Do we think, I mean, realistically, a developer is not gonna come in and say, okay, I wanna build 8 ranches. That's not gonna happen on that land. It's just not gonna happen. So do we turn this down? Do we require even less density? I don't know, and hope that someone else comes along one of these days. I mean, there are properties that have been empty for years and years and years. I won't say the word old Kmart property, but I'll say the old Kmart property. So I think with modification, this could be, but I don't know enough further modification. And my other point is, as Orlando has already said, the village has what, close to 20,000, around that, if that's population? So when we make recommendations, we have to consider the whole village. Everybody, not everybody, but the majority of feedback we hear, I've been on this board for 13 years, 12 years, I don't even know anymore. And people complain. Downtown development, they want it robust, they want it more, more activity, more action, more life, more community involved, all sorts of things. Well, you can't do that. Downtown we can't develop unless there's a reason for developers to go there. And the developers want to see people coming into the area. They want to see bodies. And something like this brings bodies into the community. And the potential to develop downtown is greater if you do something like this. I see both sides. I just don't know. Would I have preferred it to be maybe a little less dense? Would I prefer the townhouses all be inside the land rather than on the outskirt facing Old Rand Road? Yes. Other than that, I think that's about it.
Before we go to you, Mike, let me ask you a question to Mr. Hames. Question, could you step to the podium a moment, please? So, we've heard from 3 commissioners so far that are raising the same objection, and that is, in response to the one we heard, is the frontage on Old Rand Road, where we have the 2 buildings, the row houses,
those
and then you have 3 inside, but you have the 2 facing
townhouses.
directly onto Southwold Rand. In keeping with what Antonio said about the compromise that was made with Lifetime, they lowered that 3-story building by putting the 3rd story underground. You have these 2 buildings. Not saying all 5 of the row houses could be recessed, but what would be the objection, if there is one, to recessing the 2 row houses, the 4 and the 3 unit, that faces onto Southwold Rand, to eliminate that towering impression to the neighbors?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can answer it really directly right now. Certainly, there are models or living unit models that we've done that satisfy that objective. It does take a bit of, you have, in order to get a vehicle down, if you're going to be parking at that lower level, you have to provide access to it. It takes up more space, gets a little challenging. Or it could be a split level, perhaps, where the car stays up. And the issue with that is that the floor plan itself is quite compromised because you really choose into living space. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility. It's something we could consider.
Okay, because I think that would ease the concern of the commissioners we've heard from, and we've got 3 we haven't yet, so I just wanted to raise that issue for you to see if that would be a consideration.
It's certainly something we could study architecturally. I don't know what it means in terms of the financials of the development, which obviously that comes into play because there are a lot of costs with a project like this, especially the land development cost is quite significant. That cost will not go away. So it'd be spreading over a fewer number of dwellings. But like I said, it's certainly something that could be looked at, and I would not be opposed to doing so.
All right, thank you. All right, Mike, we'll go to you.
So I'm not repeating myself. The only thing I do agree with Antonio. I mean, the townhouses, those tall buildings, I cut those out. Single-family homes, I think, is much more desirable there. And then it just doesn't feel like you're jamming those townhomes into that neighborhood. Something's gonna be built there, and I would think.
It's not me, mine is off.
So, something's gonna be built there, and I would certainly think single-family homes would be much more desirable than townhomes and whatnot, so that's my only feedback on that.
All right, thanks, Mike. John?
No, that's the beauty of going last is I get to allow you all to make the comments first. But no, the height along Old Rand is the one thing personally I wish was different. A lot of the concerns you've raised are concerns we hear for proposals over and over. And so, density, parking, safety, accessibility, and for good reasons. And so, as for reasons stated over and over, I mean, you're weighing this not just against, the wishes and needs of folks in the immediate neighborhood, but the village at large as well. And I do think we've seen some drastic change from where it was 2 years ago till now, but not exactly perfect.
Okay, Scott, you get to go last.
Now I'm last. I'd basically be echoing everything that's been said. The difference with me is I was not here on this board the previous 3 times that it was presented. My initial thought when I started looking at this, and I'll be frank, I'm in construction, so I know what I'm looking at when I look at drawings. It's shoehorned in here. I was shocked to see how close the 6 are together off of Bushing. And even the single-family homes on the north side, they really only have like 15 feet apart from each other, which is pretty close. I feel like you could ask for a cup of sugar by opening the window. So I'm just echoing everything that's already been said in a different way. Same thing with the 3 stories right off of Old Rand Road, especially to the person living directly south. They'd be sacrificing a lot of privacy, I think. So I basically echo everything everybody's already said.
Okay.
Orlando,
All
if
right,
I may
Scott.
say one more thing.
Yeah, go.
We have a chance here, and this is what you said and Ildi said, is that whatever we do with this project going forward, and if whatever the trustees do, it's gonna set a precedence in our village as a whole for the 20,000 people who live here. That's the other thing that we have to also consider. It's not just this one project. It's the precedence that it sets for other projects to come to us and say, hey, you did it for them, you gotta do it for me. And that's the thing that we have to always remind ourselves, that it's not just about this project in this neighborhood, it is about the entire village, and that's who we basically are here to represent.
Yep. All right, so we've had our deliberation. Are we ready to entertain the motion?
So
We
I
have a
have,
comment coming back.
before Lawrence says, Lawrence, what are you gonna say? So, go ahead.
I was gonna say, one thing is an aside, you're a tougher town, because when I did a Lifetime Fitness, I had to just give up the slide. It was in Burr Ridge. I think we understood the consensus of what you're saying. And I think David presented the idea well that, yeah, there's probably a way architecturally to do everything. But what does it do to the plan, and will the economics of it be something the owner can live with? We're not equipped to answer either of those questions
Right.
tonight.
And
So,
if I may, that's why one of the things that, based on what you just said, Lawrence, if
Right.
I may, just for a second. We've done this in the past, where we can say, to what Lawrence just said, can we continue this so that they have a chance to go back, or do we just send it with a recommendation to the trustees and they have to live with whatever that recommendation is and then make their argument at that level? Or do we continue it, have them bring back, have their discussion, come back and say, yes, we can, no, we can't, and move on from there?
Those options are actually available to you, to either continue it to a future meeting, could be the next one, could be 2 meetings away, to give the applicant a chance to address the comments that were made tonight, because that's the purpose of the public hearing, which is to bring to the table the testimony. Now, I don't know what the applicant's timing of it is, but I know the applicant has worked through the past year and half of this year to get to this point, but
We
I'll
keep-
let them answer.
our timing is really the timing of our seller, who's been, as I said earlier, very gracious. I would prefer to actually take a short continuance, if it's the pleasure of the commission. To come back, I need to tell you, we can change it or we can't. And if we can't, you'll take a vote that night on the plan before you, and if we can, you'll take a vote that we present with changes.
I agree, because I think.
I don't know if we can make them. We just want to look.
Right, but right now, the temperature, as Orlando said, right here, is not, I believe, is not a favorable one. So I
I've been
beg
doing
it.
this longer than you, and I agree.
So, thank you. So I'm saying,
And I
this
would've
gives,
let you have the
this gives
slide.
you at least the opportunity to say, yeah, come back with whatever it is you're gonna be saying.
I think we'd rather go to the board if we can. We went to the board before with a positive recommendation, didn't make a difference. But I certainly would rather go with one than that.
Okay. So then, how do we structure that? for
May I make a
continuance? After
suggestion? You'd
closed-
have to you'd have to continue to a date certain because of the publication. It would have to be a specific meeting.
We would generally recommend that you continue to the next meeting as
What is the date of that?
July 17th. It is the third Wednesday in July.
That would be fine.
And if that is a short continuance in your mind, that's what staff would recommend, and you've been given the option for that
Okay.
too.
And then commissioners, you feel that that's our best option to get
Yep.
some? Because again, from a
Absolutely.
traffic study standpoint, the intersection of.
Well, that's the other thing. You mentioned some things you'd like to see. Well, if you
Yes.
make a, wrote that, you won't see them if you make a recommendation, not either way. And we can, I'm sure Sarosh can guide us on
Yes.
the specifics. I was making some notes, but
Yes, we made
anything that
notes,
you,
there is the
anything you
transcript.
taught, you had a sightline question, I think. A couple of things that we can come back and provide that too.
Great.
I mean, we have the benefit of tonight's transcript, which is the form of the video recording of the meeting. And so we will look at it. I'm happy to compile my notes,
That would be
anyone
helpful,
else's notes, and we will share those with you, and then work with you to come up with a proposal that addresses all of the questions.
All right. Good, Mr. Freeman. Then we'll need a motion to continue this.
Yes.
I would entertain a motion to continue deliberation to the next scheduled PZC meeting of July 17th on application PZC 2024-08.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, Mike. Colleen, please call the roll.
Commissioner Castillo,
Aye.
Commissioner Gloaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Marks,
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Muir,
Aye.
Commissioner Schultz,
Aye.
Chairman Stratman.
Aye. Okay, so we have continued this to the next scheduled meeting, which will be July 17th, Wednesday night. And hopefully we'll come back and see some of the changes we would like to see. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Next item on our agenda this evening is other business. Go to you.
Okay, somebody's.
Let me pull out my stuff here. Can't remember where I wrote it.
Sarosh, question.
Yeah.
The dispensary,
Yes,
what was the date that they were supposed to have been?
July 1st,
July 1st.
11
They're-
days from today.
They're close, but I don't know if they're gonna be.
There's been a lot of internal discussion, there have been a lot of appeals on their part, and I can tell you that we've informed them that we are not inclined to grant them an additional extension. So, that is where
You'll
we.
run around the bet now. Where are they? What odds are they taking on the bet?
They say 75%, we disagree. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, I could say that we've actually been to the site over the past couple of weeks, actually more like the past 3 or 4 weeks. And we have not seen a flurry of activity at that site, so,
We still haven't finished painting the exterior.
That's
How
right.
hard is that? Spray
Yeah.
paint.
yeah, there's a lot of work to be done on the interior. So,
What is the outcome if they don't make that?
they lose their special use permit entitlements, which expired 6 months ago. And we granted them, the village manager has the authority to grant an extension on a special use permit based on extenuating circumstances that the village manager considers, which he did, and provided them an extension up until July 1st with very specific thresholds along the way. Yes, we got a surety, we got a contribution, and certain deadlines that they had to meet, like getting a permit by the 1st of December, beginning work by the 1st of February, and being open and in operation by July 1st, which they agreed to, but now have returned saying that they cannot meet that commitment 3 weeks before the deadline. So, anyway.
So then, under other business, I'd like to remind the PCC that our next meeting is a special meeting on the commission next Wednesday, June 26th at 7 here, right where we are, at which time Tesca will give us the update on where we're at with the comprehensive plan. And we remember that we're the steering committee for the comprehensive plan, so we need to come with our ears on to listen.
Will there be anything to review prior?
Yes, we will be putting together our agenda and getting a draft of the goals and visioning that the consultant has completed. We're looking at it in draft form right now, where we get a more filled out, completed version by Friday. So that'll go out by Friday. You can take a look at it over the weekend. We'll also, do you need hard copies delivered to you on this document?
Well, are there any
If anyone-
drawings and specifications?
No, it's a document.
There's pages?
No.
Then
Email's
email is
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, we will do this one by email. Thank
right.
you.
Okay, then staff reports, or?
Yes, so, speaking of July, we do have 4 applications in the pipeline. So internally, we'll have to work out the logistics, like we did for Midlothian Manor, whether we do it on 2 consecutive days in July. We'll look at, the nature of these, but we've got 909 South Rand, which, is for a new cannabis dispensary that went before the village board last Monday.
Does the other guy know? Never mind.
The other guy does know that, yes, they have asked, yes. It's just down the road from them. So this one will come in for you for a special use permit. Then we have a drive-through facility special use permit for the building at 2 East Main Street, where Craving Euros is. The village recently sold the property. The new owners intend to install a drive-through where My Favorite Place is, put a window there, and construct the drive-through, or at least establish the drive-through in the alley in between. They do need permission from adjacent property owners because the drive-through does extend onto the adjacent properties. So, yes, I see a lot of expressions on people's faces, but that is not uncommon when I mention that. But we will evaluate it and we will provide you with our recommendation one way or the other. We've already shared a lot of the recommendation with the developer as well, and they understand that this is not a 100% straightforward application. We have the car detailing place, which is on Donata Court, which came to you for a special use permit, I'd say about 5 years ago. They're looking to move to another location in the industrial park at 865 Telsur. They're called Luminescence. They do car detailing of very high-end cars, and they've been very successful. They're looking for new space, and so they're looking at a building that's under construction right now at 865 Telsur. But because of the nature of the land use, classified as a special use permit, they need to come before you. And the last one is a fence variation. We haven't seen one in a while. For a fence height variation at 1073 Avery Ridge Circle. This is in the new Avery Ridge subdivision. There are some unusual characteristics of retaining walls with taller fences on them. And so the property owners approached the village saying that, can I get a variation to kind of be in consistency with some of those other fences? So we'll be looking at that as well, but bringing that to you. So
now we have 5 for July.
we would have 5, 4 plus 1. So we will likely look at, and I can't tell you exactly what the plan is right now, but look at perhaps doing something like we did for Midlothian Manor last year, which is do a Wednesday and a Thursday meeting. I'll send out an email for you to look at your calendars. If you have an alternative way to look at it, since we have not yet published for these 4, but already set a date certain for 670, we can certainly plan for 670 on the Wednesday date of July 17th, and then maybe be a little more flexible on how we want to treat these remaining 4, because we haven't published for them yet.
And this one can go quick if they don't acquiesce to
The changes.
Then it's-
Correct.
it's
Then we will
quick.
know ahead of time.
It's quick, so we
Yeah.
would know that pretty, and then even if he does change it, it's really those 2 buildings and maybe some of the other, but
Yeah.
it's really the 2 buildings.
The
Yeah.
townhouses off of Old Rand, they are about the same height as the townhouses that were just built on 22.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, 3 stories. So if you want to get a sense of scale, that would be a good example.
Well, if he doesn't make any changes, would we still have to reopen public testimony? Or
Yes, you have to do it regardless
Yeah,
because you've
so that's the
continued it.
fear is.
You have to
yeah.
reopen it, but close it if you don't want to make.
Yeah, but Orlando
do have
has a
a
way to
question.
just basically,
Yep.
hey, ditto for what you said last.
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I will be talking to them about a lot of these things because these things came up at the last village board meeting as well. We shared a lot of information with them. We will reshare and refresh their memories of what we shared with them as far as our internal recommendations go. I've shared a lot of it already, but I will bring it up. I've also alerted them that this could happen. So this came as no surprise to them, but
It didn't seem to.
yeah, but I did see disappointment on their faces, obviously, because a decision wasn't made. But this is not a surprise to them. I did mention that be prepared. You either get a negative recommendation, or you may get a continuance, because there will be questions.
The European Deli on Rand, gone, dead?
Oh, Kafka's Bakery?
No,
Oh.
the European Deli.
Oh, the one there, yes, that's
Andy's
gone.
Deli.
Yes,
That's it.
265 is
Now-
gone,
I've been told that they're taking the building at Ela
500 Ela, and
22.
they're in for permits actually to establish the deli over there in
Really?
the former restaurants.
Which actually kind
Which
of
is
makes
a
sense.
suitable,
Which would be
yeah,
a good idea.
a suitable building for that, and we don't have any zoning concerns because they've got ample parking on their lot and the lot across the street. Yeah, but that's an unusual location. We have not, at least in my 8 years here, I have not seen restaurants stick over there. It has to be a very, very unusual draw for people to make it over to that, because
Hey, blood
That
sausage.
Bistro
Yeah.
Kirku had a chance, and then didn't he pass away, that chef? It was,
I don't know.
yeah, he
Oh,
was
yeah,
only
that's what
open for a
happened.
little bit, but he came
Yeah.
from a great restaurant.
La Parroquia, yeah, and
And,
then
It was a
El
French
Jardín.
restaurant well
There was a
before,
French
well
one,
before
there was-
that.
And
Yeah.
one before that too, yes, lots of,
This is-
it's an unusual location, I
Yeah.
guess, from a standpoint of
It
access.
started out as Stonegate.
Right.
Yeah, Stonegate did great.
Had good
Stonegate
soup
was,
there.
did fine, but
Delicious.
whatever.
Yeah.
So,
I just always felt sorry for the servers. They had to run everything up those stairs.
there are a lot of stairs in there, multi-level building, yes.
Yeah.
So, that's our
Okay.
report for now.
Anything else? Nothing else? Nope. Then I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll, please, Colleen, and then we'll let you go home.
Commissioner Castillo,
Oh, yes.
Commissioner Gloaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Marks,
Aye.
Commissioner Morrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Muir, Commissioner Schultz,
Aye.
Chairman Stratman.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
9:55.